Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for 1 bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Mavs Party. Are we excited about this? The Dallas Mavericks have traded their 26th pick. Who else? Boban Marjanovic, Trey Burke, and Marquise Chris, and Sterling Brown to the Houston Rockets for big man Christian Wood. Whoo, folks. I've been having an evening, so this popped across my timeline, and it took me a little while to get settled and to get ready to go. I am fascinated by this trade, and I have some takes. I think that the trade is a net win is where I'm going to start with. And I am very interested in what you all think. So let's start talking and hear what people have to say. Coming up first, I saw Brett. What's up, buddy?
Oh, hey, Kirk. My first question, and I think I saw someone in the chat ask us as well, but this seems like that it would violate the rule against the Mavs trading consecutive first round picks. But I would assume that the way they get around this is that they technically don't make the trade official until after the draft.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
They'll draft whatever player and then just trade, and then as long as the trade isn't finalized till then,
yeah,
it's legal. Okay. Yeah, and then the second thing is that I think that it's a pretty low downside trade. I mean, it is a bunch of players who would never play. Like, none of those players, like, probably were not going to be on the roster next season no matter what happened. And as well as a pick that more than likely wouldn't contribute meaningfully in the next season or two.
Realistically speaking, yeah.
Realistically, obviously you can always hope you can get like a Jalen Brunson in that range, and there are players at every draft who end up being like that. But realistically, that is that was not likely to happen. And I don't know, I understand that people who have watched Christian Wood and have seen the really terrible teams he's been on for the last 3 or 4 years, and have seen some of the I think at one point he was fined by the team for something on the bench. But my point like that is that you get him on a team that is trying to win, is not just kind of blatantly tanking, and that I would guess that a lot of those issues go away, and especially the fact that as I think someone pointed out on Twitter that Sean Sweeney previously was the assistant coach in Detroit when he was there, and I would assume he was probably asked about that.
Sure.
And was probably able to give a pretty good insight into, his work ethic, his and those kind of concerns. And I would say that, you have an example in this year's finals of a player who, did have those, that was kind of tagged as having like a low motor in Wiggins. And obviously Wiggins is not has much higher prospect pedigree compared to Wood, but they're both players who were on a relatively bad underperforming team, had a reputation for not trying that hard. But then Wiggins, was traded into a better situation where he was asked to do less, and then really bought into being more of a connecting piece. And I would say that is, the hope that what the Mavericks would have for this trade, that, he's already a very efficient offensive player, and that you hope that on defense that he will be able to, contribute and to learn the scheme and to, be at least competent on that end.
Well, so here's the thing, and there's a lot of chat and there's a lot of talk here. So he's a contract year guy, which is interesting. I need people to understand though that I want you to temper your expectations. Man's 26. He has not stuck with any team, and he was undrafted. And when I say I've not come across a person that has dealt with him in professional capacity that has a nice thing to say about him, I mean every single person. I'm not saying he's a bad dude by any stretch, but he has lacked the professional aspect of being a professional basketball player. That is why he has not stuck. There's a lot of incentive for him. But I think this is an interesting low-risk move is sort of where my initial take lies. Do you think that's unreasonable?
No, I mean, I think that is completely reasonable. I do think it is just a very low-risk move. I think that,
while opening up a lot of roster spots. I hate to be that transactional about it, but it's just like,
I mean, and just from that perspective, and this is, it would save the, not that I care ever about saving the team money, but it would save them money on just having to cut those guys.
Right. It really would.
They were going to have to cut Chris and Burke and Brown anyway, just because they were not going to contribute. But I don't know. I mean, I would guess that this is just not the final move they'll make in the offseason.
No, of course not.
I will be I'll be, with Wood being on the team, it makes, Powell even more, expendable than he already was, in that, he's clearly, he's started on the team for so long, he's a fixture on the team, but he doesn't need, they don't need him. Obviously it helps to have, a warm body on the bench to be able to play those backup 5 minutes. But I can't imagine that he would see more than, even if he were on the team this next year, that he would see more than, 10 to 15 minutes a game.
Right. Right. My colleague Josh is somewhere in the chat, and I can't find him. Josh, can you talk or send a request so I can invite you up here? Brett, thank you so much for starting us off right.
No problem. Thanks.
All right. Coming up next, Jason, that was my bad, man. I was looking for Josh in the chat and accidentally sent you an invite button. Thank you for hopping up here. But if you got something to say, let us hear it.
Oh yeah, sure. I'll hop on. I guess my initial reaction is, like the last guy was saying, I think it's just a very low risk move because essentially it's 26 for Christian Wood. And 26, like we've been saying, realistically speaking, we weren't going to get a functional player that we need, especially in playoff minutes where our rotation was incredibly limited. And so you put out 3 players that didn't get significant playoff minutes at all, and you bring in a guy who brings something to the table.
Right.
And the other thing, I mean, just about like, I guess the attitude thing, you referenced him being an undrafted guy, and I think right now in the league, one of the poster guys for undrafted guys is Dorian Finney-Smith, and
Sure.
we've heard a lot this season about how he's the heart of the team. People listen when he talks, so I'm banking on, strong influences that he's not going to be the guy, the second or third guy, and we heard similar things in DC about Dinwiddie and being not a likable person. And it's apples and oranges, but
I hear what you mean though. You're just talking about what happens if a guy gets in a new situation. I think this is a fair take.
Yeah, and I think just practically speaking, I mean, I remember a few pods ago, one of them you were kind of frustrated with the team giving Trey Burke a 3-year guaranteed deal a couple seasons ago, and then Marquise Chris, for some random ass reason, they gave him a guaranteed contract again for the next couple of years.
Right.
Getting off of that money, honestly, literally the saddest part is Boban. To me, honestly, that's the saddest part. Other than that, I will not lose an ounce of rest over whatever else is going out the door. And we're getting a guy with legitimate potential, spotty history, but hey, I mean, we didn't give up essentially anything. I feel like we still have legitimate trade assets and players that are somewhat movable in Timmy and Powell. If we're going to move off of that, I still think we have a big need at a defensive, kind of strong, hefty center.
Yeah.
And I mean, if Nico could pull this off kind of out of thin air, I guess, he did Porzingis thing, trade deadline. He did this. He seems to be a magician. So I guess at this point, in Nico we trust. So here we go.
Well, Jason, I inadvertently invited you up to speak, and much like our guy Christian Wood, you're stepping up to the bat. So thanks for hanging out.
Appreciate it.
All right. Up here on stage now, I got my guy Josh Bowe, who he and I normally do our shows. If you listen to Mavs Moneyball podcast, which you should, if you're listening to this and not to that, you're very weird. Josh, what's up?
Nothing much. How are you doing?
Well, nice little strange evening. My child proceeded to barf as I pressed start on this show, which meant I had to hold in silence for about 5 minutes while the room was like, Kirk, what are you doing?
That's
but
perfect.
I think he's better. So he was very upset about Boban leaving. Is the answer here. So
he felt the disturbance in the vibes.
That's right. So I don't want to keep you all night because it's, again, a Wednesday in June.
I know. We can hang out, though. We'll do this instead of doing our normal pod. I mean, if you want.
That's what I mean. How about because what I'm going to do is I want to talk to you for a few minutes. I'm going to keep inviting people up. And so why don't you hang out with us as long as you want and then bail till you don't. So
sounds good.
You were sort of running quarterback in our Slack while I was dealing with something else. What is kind of the initial Mavs Moneyball reaction to this, and what is your initial reaction to this?
I think our staff is mostly neutral to positive because it's just such a low-risk move, and I think that's kind of how I feel about it too. Of course, our staffer, Ben, who seems to always anguish with Mavericks.
Yeah, he's worse than me.
He's had an hour roller coaster where he's like, I hate this, I love this, I hate this. So we're trying to settle Ben down, but I think everyone else kind of understands the opportunity the Mavericks took here. And yeah, my first thought is, I mean, look, I talked to you about a lot of stuff, and we've talked about Wood before, not necessarily like on a podcast, but on our Slack or just talking about players and stuff. And you're the NBA shadow broker, and you talk to people that would know. And I don't know how many times you've told me that this guy just there's not good vibes coming from him. And like you said,
I mean, people will go on the record and talk about how he's not ever been remotely kind.
Yeah.
Like how it's just like a lot of just and you're going to say, oh, that doesn't matter. And maybe it doesn't, but it's interesting. is where my head is with it. And the flip side of that for me is, though, this is not the locker room where you're an asshole. Like, you think Luka, Dinwiddie, or Brunson is going to put up with a schmuck after going to the Western Conference Finals?
Exactly. And, it's just tough. And it doesn't seem like he's like I don't think the Mavericks should be worried about, like, him doing something, like, awful off the court. It's more just, like, in terms of being it's in terms of being, like, a professional. And from what you've heard, it's just he just at every stop in his career, he has not shown that he's willing to put in the work to take kind of the next step and be more than a good stats, bad team kind of guy, which is basically what he's been his whole career. I mean, he hasn't been on a winning team. I know the counter to that is, well, he's never been in a winning situation. Let's see what it is. And that's an appropriate counter. It's just we have to talk about why was this guy available for scraps in the 26th overall pick if he's that talented, and that's the reason why. So
because it's got to be understood that the Houston Rockets, who are the worst team in basketball by some measures, were like, nope.
Right.
Because Bill Simmons' reaction was, this is all the Rockets got, and so there's just that's got to cause you to go, huh. Now, Mark's friend of the show, I love saying that. Friend of the show, Marc Stein, just said that now the Mavericks are expected to retain Theo, which is fascinating because I never wanted to say this out loud, but I'm going to right now. I was delighted that he was on the team. If they moved on from him, I would have gone, okay. I wouldn't have given it a second thought because he's like a 17th person. But if they're that invested in him, that speaks to something interesting to me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think they wanted to. I mean, he seemed to, he proved himself just by being a guy on the bench that causing chaos. And I wonder how many missed three-pointers he caused just by yelling at the end of the Mavs bench, because I think that's like a real thing. So that's nice. I mean, that also helps when you're bringing in a guy that's not necessarily his locker room guy that you can, if you're losing Boban, but you get to keep Theo, that helps. But yeah, it's just. I think a main point I want to say is I think a lot of Mavs fans are understandably like really excited, and I don't blame them. And I keep seeing this thrown around, and like this is like a no risk move. Like it's just it's a win-win. There's no risk. They didn't give anything up. There's nothing really to lose for them. And I have to keep reiterating, and I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, I promise.
Sure.
That there's no such thing as a no risk move in the NBA. And I understand that Wood is on an expiring contract, and I understand that the 26th overall pick is not that much to give up for his talent. And I understand the Mavericks, knowing the Mavericks draft history, that 26th pick wouldn't have amounted to much. And then, of course, the players that they traded, they're not going to miss, and he's not going to clog up their cap room because it expired. It's like, I get all that. But, like, there's still, like, he still has to play games this season. And if his fit doesn't work out, if the way he interacts in the locker room, if he brings down the room, if it's an awkward fit, kind of like how they try to integrate Porzingis, because Wood is an offensive player. Like he gets touches. Like he is not just a guy that plays off of guards like a Dwight Powell. Like I'm sure he wants touches just as much. Maybe not just as much as KP, but he's that type of offensive player. He's not just a guy that sets screens and catches lobs. Like he likes to have offensive possessions unto himself. I mean, if that fit doesn't work cleanly, I mean, you're talking about a move that could potentially make this season maybe fall a little bit under expectation. And, that's a risk, right? Like, I mean, sure, you can trade him at the trade deadline if it's not working, but if the Mavericks are like 500 at the trade deadline and Wood's not playing well and his attitude is kind of seeping into other aspects of the team, like, to me, that's the risk. Like, it doesn't, just because you can trade him, just because the players that they traded away aren't going to miss, doesn't mean that, like, this is just going to be a win-win move. Now, I want to preface that by saying the chances of what I described, that scenario, are low enough that, I make this move 10 times out of 10. I just wanted to say, like, I think there's a lot of, like, well, how could you even question this deal? Like, there's no risk for the Mavericks. Like, that, there's always something to risk when you're acquiring a new player, and I just kind of wanted to make that point before we talk about him.
Well, the fun part about that versus, say, a Kristaps Porzingis, is the simple fact of Porzingis with his bajillion-dollar salary had a real argument to be made that he should be part of the offense. Guy making, I think it's like $9 million. Guy making like $9 million a year who has been on I'm just gonna be curious. How many teams has this guy been on?
He's been on a couple. He's making $14 million this year.
$14 million. Okay, but it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah,
pretty good deal. Like, we're all mad when he when he signed it because we're like, oh, he was available. Why didn't we go get him? Like, that was like the general thing. And it's like he doesn't really have cachet to come into this team and demand touches.
No, he doesn't. You're right. And like I said, that's a low risk. I didn't want to try to make it seem like that's what's going to happen. I just there's always risk when you bring in a guy that has a little bit of a rep as a malcontent, I think is a fair way to say it.
Well, this will be his 7th NBA team, so wow.
Right. And, I mean, if he was available for this much, I mean, a lot of other contenders could have matched or exceeded what the Mavericks did. So, again, there's some risk there. But, again, now the fun part is the talent is just you ogle at this. Like, I mean,
Grant Afseth over at DallasBasketball.com did this he did like a steroids version of what you like to do, where he's like, what if the Mavs traded for Christian Wood? And it has like 15 different clips of going, oh, yeah, this could work on offense.
Yeah, I mean, he might be a better offensive player in Dallas than Porzingis was. I mean, good Lord, even if worst case scenario happens, I mean, he's a 38% three-point shooter on his career. In the last 2 years, he's about 5 attempts a game, 37% in 2021, 39% in 2022. That's a hell of a lot better than we saw Kristaps do in his Mavericks time. So, and that was bizarre. Like, I have no idea why Kristaps' shooting was so bad last year. And at times, like, he was so inconsistent with his three in Dallas that, at bare minimum, I mean, if he can make 38 to 40% of his threes on 5 attempts, I mean, he's going to bring something to this team that they don't really have because, Maxey, shoots a high percentage, but he's not necessarily a volume guy and he doesn't play a ton of minutes. Like, I'm going to be very interested to see what the Mavericks look like having another 27, 30-minute a night big floor spacer on the floor. Like, it's going to be interesting because they kind of had to change how they played when Kristaps left a little bit.
That's right.
And they had more power, they had more rim runs, and it was more Luka-centric. But, yeah, I'm curious. Like, offensively, he's kind of like Dwight Powell on steroids, right? Like, he's so I mean, the sky's the limit there. I don't know how good he is at, like, shot clock's running down, let's throw him the ball on the wing and let him create. But on a team that has Brunson and Luka and even Dinwiddie, I would imagine you don't have to have him really do that often. But, I mean, what do we talk about the Mavericks offense was good enough in the playoffs, but, I mean, they needed more guys. And it's funny that we say that this accomplishes that, despite the fact that they traded like 5 guys to get 1 guy. But they traded 5 guys that never played, and they got another guy. Like, at bare minimum, they now have like 7 players that can play in a high-stakes, high-leverage playoff game, regardless of what you think of, like, can he stay on the floor in the playoffs? Like, he'll at least play. And
for sure.
Defensively is where that's the question mark.
Well, all right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to start bringing up folks. You know the deal. Josh, if you listen to the show, you're a masochist. But I know you know the drill here. So I'm going to bring people up, and we're just going to let them talk and then ask any questions they have. First, my man, Jordan. How are we doing, buddy?
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Pretty good.
So I kind of wish we would have done this trade before I had spent all that time breaking down who I thought the Mavs should target with.
I've like 6 draft columns that I'm probably still going to run because I want my guys to get their posts per month, but I'm going to have to write an editor's note at every single one.
Yeah, it's crazy. I am a little upset with that, but other than that, I kind of like the trade. Again, it's a low risk. I don't think there's no risk, but it is low risk. I do think that the one advantage that we had, so the reason we couldn't play Powell wasn't his defense. It was because his offense wasn't good enough for him to be out there. So hopefully if Wood can just be passable on defense in a switching scheme, I have a feeling that he would give Looney or he would give, even Biyombo more of a problem on defense, or for them to try to defend him, than the other way around. And so that's my hope, is that he can do enough on offense to be playable in the playoffs.
I like it. Got anything else?
No, not really. Just kind of a little, as the draft guy, a little bummed that we traded the pick. Kind of hope we do a little bit more trading.
Sure.
Maybe we take on a pick at some point, but I kind of saw the writing on the wall when we were when Rafael Barlow said we'd only worked out 3 players so far for the draft.
Yeah,
so I kind of saw the writing on the wall.
My killer, if I ever get a chance to talk to Nico Harrison, I want to ask if the Mavs would ever consider like publicizing who they work out, because I would love it if the Mavs just flooded the zone. The stuff like the Charlotte, I almost called them the Harlot Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets, like they publicize every single person they work out. And I don't know about you guys, but I have nothing to do some days, and I like fawning over draft prospects. But hey, we'll see.
Yeah, I like the idea, but this draft was not super deep. Wood is probably better than anyone we could get at 26, definitely for this season, and maybe even going forward. So I don't really hate this. I kind of like clearing up the roster spots too, because those guys were not going to play anyway. So
yeah,
I think it was a good process. We'll see about the results. As long as we keep Brunson, I think I like this trade. If Brunson walks, then I don't like the trade.
All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate you joining.
Have fun.
All right. Coming up next, we're going to have on Armand, who has some close to the situation knowledge. Armand, you said you saw Boban today. What do you got?
So yeah, I actually work for the Dallas Wings. I just work at the retail stand, but I pretty much watch the game for the most part. But so Boban was at the game today. If y'all didn't see on the Mavs social media, and he left around the third quarter, which is kind of unusual because you'd expect them to stay for the whole game. So yeah, this trade probably could have been going on the whole day. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. Also Miles Turner was at the game, coincidentally. But yeah, wow. This trade was shocking to me. Like I don't think any of us had Christian Wood on our offseason radar, but I don't know. I really would like to see how it plays out.
See, that's interesting because there has been a significant amount of thirst for Christian Wood, but nothing, where it's like, oh, let's go get this this potentially affordable good guy on a bad team. But kind of just like the Spencer Dinwiddie thing. It was like, is this going to happen? That kind of deal. So I'm fascinated by this. That's good to know. Yeah, I saw those pictures of Boban with who's the Wings' tallest player? I don't want to say her name wrong.
I don't think it was her. It was another player. She wasn't playing today. Her name is Satel Sabali. I believe that's how you say her name.
Yes, and the photos were amazing because it just looks like two normal people, but
exactly,
they're both gigantic.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like it just feels weird that Boban is not a Maverick anymore. Like I'm so glad we got Christian Wood. I really like the deal.
Sure.
I'll break it down more again in a second, but man, as a Mavs fan, it hurts that we traded Boban. I mean, this guy, no matter our ups and downs, Boban was always the guy that would make you happy. Like I remember I was at the game Mavs versus Nuggets whenever the season got postponed and we all found out in the middle of the game and everybody's freaking out about the season being ended. I'm just here enjoying Boban drop a 30 piece, like this guy, like he's brought us, so many memories. He brought us so much happiness to this team. A big part of why we have such good chemistry. Also, I was thinking, I don't know, is Luka happy about that? Because I mean, Boban's his guy, so I don't know.
I think you gotta. Boban's a pro. He's been a pro since he was 16.
And yeah, and I'm sure he understands it's a business, but I mean, damn, I did not think I knew we would be trading players, but you would have never thought we would have traded Boban.
That's where the Dorian contract and then the Brunson hopefully re-signing comes into play because those are his other two very good close friends of the team. The Mavericks gotta figure this out. But this is good stuff, man. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then hopefully this deal works out good. Last thing I want to say is that I hope this isn't the only big weekend the offseason. I would like for us to get another big to improve our depth, and yeah, hopefully we don't just settle for Christian Wood at the big position. But yeah, thank you.
Sure thing, buddy. Josh, what do you got?
I'm just I was just thinking, bringing up Boban, like, I'm just so glad I don't have to get flamed for my Boban takes anymore.
That's true, because it's like we all like him as a dude.
Yeah.
That's not the same thing.
Like I understand that Luka's probably, a little, but like, come on, like, you gotta.
Sure.
Luka is smart enough to know, like, you gotta, if you're gonna move forward as a team, you can't just keep holding on to the same rosters since 2019. Like, you gotta.
Yep.
He's part of the deal.
This is worth reading. My a follower named John Gonzalez sent me this in a direct message from Jonathan Fagan, who works. Jonathan Fagan. He's a beat writer for the Houston Chronicle. Says a couple of things worth noting about Christian Wood era. He was a stand-up guy in an unbelievable two-stretch season, and he should flourish with the Mavs. I'll tell you what, guys. That's a hell of a endorsement. From people, it's like that's a beat writer's round every day, which that's a good endorsement. I like that. So, yeah.
Right, because isn't the thing that the people we heard from were the people that were around him every day, and the other organizations that weren't Houston.
Right, so, right. Like I have a couple of people where if you know who I am and know who I'm friends with, you could probably link it back that were just like, I had nothing good to say. So it's nice to hear about that. So. All right, let me see who else we got. We've got a number of different people. Oh man, where did he go? Xavier was in here. Okay, we're gonna let.
Yeah, we got to get him up.
We're gonna let
gentlemen. Top of the morning to you, lovely, fine gentlemen. The sun is shining bright. I can't believe it.
We're gonna like you need to change your like. What are you? I know you're a gambler because you've done this twice now with Dinwiddie, who you manifested, and now Christian Wood. So, what is your secret? And one of the two of you need to change your fire alarm battery. And what?
Certainly me. That's me. New home. Sorry, I don't have a ladder yet. Ceilings are high.
So that Boban needs to come to your house. So, tell us what your thinking is.
So, I think a lot of if you guys watch Family Guy, the guy offers the dad, hey, you can have a boat or you can have this box. And Peter Griffin's like, oh, man, anything could be in that box. It could even be a boat. And I feel like that's how Mavs fans treat the 26th pick. They watch tape or they hear draft analysts say how these different players can fit, and they talk themselves into it. But the same questions you have about why Wood will be available at 26, if there's a guy that fit our needs, why would he be available at 26? So the fact is that anybody we would have taken in the draft would have had warts or they would have had things to overcome. I've seen Christian Wood be a productive, impactful NBA player. I haven't seen Christian Coloco, whoever these guys are, have an impact in the NBA. And so at that point, the opportunity cost is low. I understood what Josh was saying about being a bad guy chemistry. But like you mentioned, Kirk, we had to fit KP in because he had a long-term big money contract. We can just cut Wood. And all it means is $8 million out of Mark Cuban's pocket. There's no downside to it. We can just cut them, and we have the same roster intact, so we're not taking away from the team that we already have. It's just icing on the cake. But, Mavs fans, if you haven't watched Christian Wood, remember, the gentleman earlier mentioned it with Andrew Wiggins, when you're on a bad team that has no accountability, and the coach has lost the locker room, which I know you guys know about Houston, how the locker room is a mess, and there was similar issues in Detroit where the locker room was not bought in. There's no accountable. Christian Wood was asked to be the vet just because of his age, not because he was a leader, just because he was the oldest vet in the room with a bunch of young guys who didn't know how to be professionals. That's not the right environment for him. Enter our locker room. We're built on culture. We're built on accountability and trust. And so if you insert a malcontent into a volatile locker room, it can blow up. You insert a malcontent into our locker room, I have faith that we can turn that guy around because winning matters. Look at Andrew Wiggins. We were always frustrated with Wiggins because he had the physical tools and he had the skills, but he didn't have the work ethic. He didn't work as hard as a professional. And just because he shook the owner's hand and said, yeah, I'm going to get better, the owner believed him. We all knew he wasn't a professional. Then he comes to Golden State, he looks around, and when everyone around you is doing the right thing, it takes a special breed of asshole to look at the other 11 guys on the roster working hard and for you to be like, you know what? I'm good. So I have faith that we'll be able to get the most out of him because the skill set, anybody who has shit on Christian Wood, they've never argued about the skill set or the tools. It's always about what's between the ears. And I just feel like we have the right environment to kind of get the most out of a distressed asset. So I'm through the roof, man. I just think it's in 5-6 months, once you guys see him in action, you guys will be like, you know what? I see the vision.
I mean, it's never mute yourself.
Yeah.
How are you living in that house with that beeping? I would kill someone. And it's never a question of play. It's just a question of vibes. Now that Houston Chronicle beat writer thing does wonders for my feelings on this. It just does, because somebody in the chat said it goes back to his time with the Bucks. I'm like, guys, this guy was a really good college player who went undrafted. For teams not to want to take a chance on you because you're undrafted, like he got sent home from summer league at one point, I'm pretty sure. Like there's just stuff. So, but I'm delighted, right? Because but
remember he got cut in New Orleans because the Pelicans had Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins jam at the center position. He was never going to get any minutes, so they didn't give up on him. It was just roster construction. Then he goes to Detroit.
You're a big Danny LaRue guy. You're a big Danny LaRue and Nate Duncan guy. And Danny LaRue said on a show I listened to last week is you want to be the second to last team to try on a guy. You don't want to be the last team on a guy. And they were talking about Russell Westbrook, where it's like the Lakers are probably stuck with Russell Westbrook. But you just need to know when to go and know when to whoa, as my coach used to say about playing two hat. It's like this guy this is his last best chance. This is it.
And
where'd you go? You went underwater.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
There we go.
Okay. The last thing I'll say is this. We saw what happened to us when Kleber got 2 early fouls or when he wasn't able to play. We didn't have anyone on the roster who can even come close to emulating what Kleber could provide. And ask yourself, who in the draft could emulate what Kleber does, which is extremely valuable? Who was available to trade or free agency?
Nobody.
For the middle level? Nobody. So if there's a 60% chance that he can even beat Maxi Kleber light, you take that, because to other teams, Maxi Kleber may not be that valuable. But to us, he's literally the anchor to our ability to play 5 out and to create matchup problems in the playoffs. So if he can just substitute for him in some key moments, that in and of itself is tremendous value, even if he does nothing else. So I'll step down.
You're the man. Thanks so much for joining. I do got to say, and I'm going to let Josh talk. This is a very stupid thing, but I'm sort of glad the Mavericks don't have the draft pick, so they don't draft the French guy, Kamagate or whatever his name is, because my brain reads his name as Kamalagate, and I think presidential scandal, I think some sort of political scandal every time I see the guy's name. It's weird. But yeah, tell me what you're thinking.
Well, now we need Xavier to tell us who is the next big player that the Mavericks are going to acquire, because he's 2 for 2. So Xavier, if you think the Mavericks are going to trade for Giannis or I don't know, something crazy like that, or trade for Zion, what's next, Xavier? We need to know, please.
We're trading for Kevin Durant. Is my I am Daltoning the shit out of this, and Kevin Durant.
I am curious. I think another thing that I've just been thinking about is this trade doesn't happen if Rick Carlisle is still the coach of the Mavericks, right? 0% chance.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it. So, I mean, I will admit, remember, during the last 10 years, remember how often we'd be a player would be cut, a young player, would be cut, or a player would become available that's kind of a lot of talent, but it's kind of drifting out of the league. And we, when the Mavericks were in the doldrums of 2016, 2017, we'd be like, oh, can they just get this guy? And we'd always be like, no, they're not, because Carlisle. They're not going to get a guy like that because Carlisle's not going to work with them. So it is nice that we're kind of past that era where they can kind of roll the dice a little bit more on these talented guys. And, I don't know if it's going to work, but it's nice that this option, it feels like the cupboard is more, there's more in the cupboard to use now, or there's more tools in the toolbox, because now we don't kind of have that blocker that was well, we're not going to make this trade because Carlisle's here. So that's kind of a nice little bonus, I guess. I
love that. That's a good one. Okay, we've got a lot of people, so I'm going to just fly through. Steven, what's up, buddy? Welcome back.
Man, what a whirlwind. Oh, my gosh. Man, I just remember cutting into this offseason, the one thing I wanted above all was just get rid of the unplayables. And Nico was just all right, bet. And so just did it in one move. So the one thing, but besides from the Christian Wood, how is he going to fit and how everything's going to roll from here on forward, I'm just so happy about the window he opened with with the breath of fresh air of just new players that can join the squad now. So that's what I'm kind of thinking about already. Just is Goran Dragic. Is he kind of set in stone considering he's like attached to the hip at Luka this offseason so far, and just like other things, or like, and just like knowing they're not done with any moves just yet. I don't think. Just like anything of just like who else could they trade for, or if there's someone that they actually do like on the boards, could they try to trade into like the second or something? I'm just like, I don't want to say it for too long, but I'm just like super excited. Just like the more future moves they can continue to do this offseason, whether it's like on draft, like, well, this has to go into draft night, but also just like heading into free agency too.
Good stuff, man. Hey, I'm all for people being happy. I recorded a show with Bobby Corrali yesterday that I forgot to post because I'm a genius. And we just like talked about last season, just like how much fun elements of it are. And if this is fun, I want everybody to be super excited. I'm interested is where I am right now. I am selfishly very grumpy about it because I was looking forward to an interesting Mavs Summer League team, and that shit is just out the window.
Oh, I have one thing I have to pick up that I want to add, but it's actually on Hustle. The one thing that I just loved at the very beginning, this isn't really a spoiler, is just like the prospect that Adam Sandler is just completely against is played by Mo Wagner. I just love that so much.
That was Mo Wagner? I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I was like, that's got to be Mo Wagner. And then in the credits, it's him. They confirmed it. So I'm sure Luka must have had a chuckle when he saw that.
Every single person that is in this room needs to find a way to watch Hustle. Hustle is the most entertaining, actually good movie that I've watched in a while. So
yeah.
Well, thanks so much, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks again.
Who's next? A lot of folks in here. Let's go with my man Ruben. What's up, my friend?
Oh man, I'm super excited. Just imagining like our starting lineup of Woods, Reggie Bullock, DSF, Luka, and Brunson. And you know, I'll bring it up when I'm about to get off. Just a thought I had, but after our playoff run, I felt like we had three names. They were long shots, and I didn't even know if it could happen. That's why I was like looking towards the draft for a big or a wing. But what was it? Turner, Woods, or Gobert. Everybody kept, asking, how can we get one of these? How can we get one of these guys? It seemed like a far-fetched idea. Mavs don't have assets. We turned a first-round pick and benched guys into one of the guys we actually wanted.
Bingo.
I don't know what else to say to that. Like, I literally don't know what else to say to that. But it was podcast after podcast. Turner, like one of those three, and we got one of those three. And I totally understand where you're coming from about maybe him not buying into other systems. But I look at Dinwiddie and a couple other players, but Dinwiddie to be the most recent as playing in an environment that maybe they don't believe in you, or maybe they're asking you to do something that you don't want to do, or just a trash team, and they want you to just do extra stuff on a trash team when the upper management isn't even trying that hard to put good players around you. But put them in this environment like Dinwiddie, with strong players like Dinwiddie, TSJ, Luka, Dorian, like these guys, this is their team, and he'll know that. And, I'm pretty sure he's going to buy in for sure. But I have one more thought, but I have no words, just imagining.
Sure.
And he can play 5 or the 4, and I think this will give Reggie and Dorian a little rest, because I feel like you could play him with Maxey if you wanted to. He can switch. He can actually dribble. Just looking at his highlights when the news came down, this guy can dribble as a 5 or a 4. Which, I mean, Dorian is cool, but he's not dribbling like this guy. This dude is doing step backs and dropping 39 on nights and stuff.
He is, as the kids say, a real hooper.
Right. But I don't see any downside, and we all have to like give a hand to Nico and the job he did pulling this off. Like and another thing, I guess you guys can stop doing the podcast. Was it Josh? You guys like lit that bench on fire. Fuck, they don't do anything. Let's get them out of here. Like I remember those podcasts.
Well, I mean, the Mavericks are signing Josh Bowe. Josh is going to be part of the bench.
He was like, I thought it was either Josh or you. Fuck Boban. We don't need nice guys. We need players.
That could not be me. That's me cursing. Come on. How dare you? This is slander.
I mean, Boban is cool, but hey, they know each other. I'm pretty sure him and Luka got each other phone numbers. They can link up and have brunch or whatever. But
right, man. Thanks so much, Ruben. I appreciate you.
Oh, one more thought. Do you think, with our starting lineup, almost all of our guys are like 6'5" and over? Hey, maybe we do a sign and trade with Brunson, get back in the draft and get a taller guy that can handle the ball. What do you guys think about that? And even more players.
I don't know. I don't want to make any predictions because I'm never right. I was right about Luka. That was the one, and then I never get to be right again.
Hey, but I'm over. Like I cannot imagine next year. I'm so excited. You guys have a good night. Buddy.
You too, man. All right, guys. Coming up next, I got a special guest. I got to bump to the front of the line because he is awesome. Marc Stein with some fun news a minute ago on his Substack, which every single person. I know, right? Which every single person should subscribe to. It is well worth the money. His newsletter is outstanding. He had an incredibly I really love that story about your father, Stein. But we'll circle back to that. How you doing, friend? Maybe he'll, if he doesn't know how to use the unmute button on his own app, that is my favorite thing. I don't know. We're going to talk, and Steiny will figure it out. Josh, do you have any thoughts on what our man Ruben said?
No, I think you made a good point about, think about what we've been talking about for the last 3 or 4 years. About, it's kind of crazy. This is the second big trade in 4 months for Nico as a first-year GM. Kristaps was like, it's crazy to think the Kristaps trade was 4 months ago. It feels like years ago now at this point, but it was 4 months ago. And you think about where the roster was when Nico got here and where it is now. I mean, what has been the main thing me and you have been talking about, Kirk? Just can we get new guys in here? Because what they're doing isn't necessarily working. And it wasn't that we wanted, Kemba or these big flashy free agent signings. We just wanted them to just get
singles
guys.
And doubles.
Yes.
Just make the team better.
And now you've taken away Kristaps and you get Dinwiddie and Bertans and Wood and Bullock. And imagine if they just make more of these Bullock type moves and just add more of those types of guys to the roster, that level of player, that's all we've been asking for, right? It's just, even if we don't know how the experiment's going to end up with Wood here, I understand why we all should be pretty optimistic because of the talent, but it's just nice, right? Just there's new guys here, and I just like that this new GM has been what? I see where just being able to mix things up, because I think that's what the roster has desperately needed for a long time now, and we definitely have that.
Yeah, that's right. Stein, we're still working on getting the unmute button worked. He's been hosting these himself, but Spotify Live seems to edit stuff fairly frequently. So
I'm here. Can you guys hear me? I'm here.
My man.
Thank you for the kind intro. Now on the second attempt, I actually had a mute button to unmute, yep. So here I am.
No, I mean, this is the last time you came up here was when we were having the fun post game, trying to use the internet from the arena, the Wi-Fi. So this is much better. So what can you tell us? What would you feel comfortable sharing with us tonight, Mr. Stein?
Well, I actually thought you would not like this trade. So was my premonition wrong? Are you happy?
The Mavericks just made it to the Western Conference Finals. It goes against every fiber in my being to not complain, but I'm not going to complain. I just have to have the benefit of the doubt has been earned. How's that for a response?
the benefit of the doubt, meaning you're right to complain.
No, I think Nico Harrison and the Mavericks front office, by getting the Western Conference Finals, when I was just hoping for them to get out of the second round, everything. I'm not going to complain, and I don't have any reason to.
I'm actually quite surprised. See, I thought you would have said, I want that 26 pick. I want to see what you can get there. You can find players at 26. I don't want to hear that 26 is a meaningless asset. That was my prediction of how you were going to react.
I mean, I have run through the gambit of emotions. Like, I think that the more immediate impact is Christian Wood. It just seems like such, when you clear that many roster spots for it as well. I'm just having a hard time being like, this is terrible, because we have one Mavs Moneyball contributor, Xavier, who has basically clamored for two players the last year and a half. One of them was Spencer Dinwiddie, the other was Christian Wood, and now they're both on the Mavericks.
Wow.
And so but I need to go gambling with him. And it's one of these things where I'm at the moment, I'm not seeing any particular challenge with it, because as I think Josh said this a second ago, or someone else did, the Mavericks had to play Dwight Powell at center and Maxi Kleber, and that was kind of it. And what if you had one more body in that role? Look,
I think the view from Mavs HQ, and I've been on the phone nonstop now for the last hour or so, and I might have to leave again if the phone rings, so I will apologize in advance. But yes, I mean, they are ecstatic that they are getting a player on basically a 1-year flyer to find out if, is he going to play the defense he needs to play to stay on the court and really have an impact here. But they traded 4 guys who they weren't going to play. And obviously no one in Dallas, and I can say this honestly, no one in Dallas loves Boban more than me. I will miss him tremendously as a person. I actually, in kind of a sad moment, right after Game 5, I saw him in the hallway after the game. I'm sure everybody saw all the pictures of Dirk with Chet Holmgren and Luka, and just all, everybody's kind of milling around and saying goodbye to the season. And Boban just walked up, grabbed my hand, which quickly disappeared in his hand, and was like, next year. And now obviously he won't be part of that. But the reality of, as much as everyone loves Boban, put him aside. The other 3 guys had completely fallen out of favor. They create roster spots. They get a chance to bring in Christian Wood next season. I mean, if they do nothing else, no one has to worry about, they're just running back the same team in a West that's much better. I mean, the upside for them was, the upside of this trade, to me, makes it worth, okay, you've lost the number 26 pick, but I don't think they were going to draft a better player at 26 than Christian Wood.
That's kind of the simplest argument, because, it's maybe a guy will be good in X number of years, but as a team that's ready to win right now, that's kind of where it is. You also just reported that because of the clearing of the roster spots, the Mavericks are, they will have to consider signing Theo Pinson, correct?
I would say that's, I would strongly expect that to happen. I mean, look, I haven't talked to Theo tonight. I don't know what's in his head. Presumably another team could make him an offer that I guess could get his attention. But based on everything I've understood to this point, he badly wants to return. The Mavericks badly wanted him back. And, when they woke up this morning, they didn't see roster room on how to do it. And now they have the roster room to do it. And I've basically been told that, yes, he's, expect him back in the strongest possible terms. So nothing is 1,000% on what is today, June 15th, when free agency doesn't start for 15 more days. But Pinson's going to be here. I'm pretty sure of that. And look, I think they will still make a small move or two around the edges in free agency. But this is the big move next to re-signing Brunson. And, I don't think I'm breaking news on here to say that I strongly expect Brunson to re-sign. I mean, that's been go ahead. You go ahead.
Our friend Scott, CBA Mavs, is already on the other side of the planet, has already rejiggered what he thinks the Mavs cap space is. And they're currently $34 million over the salary cap line with this trade. So it's like when you said they might make some small moves, that's like a literal thing because they don't have too many options at their fingertips. So that's okay.
Yeah, well, I think any move they make, and CBA Scott can tell us better, they'll anything they do would be very expensive. I'm sure if the Magic Scepter was in Kirk Henderson's hand, that they would use that trade exception before it expires. What is
but
it?
You can't, though. There's nothing. Scott actually wrote about this today for Mavs Moneyball. There's not really. There are like 7 real players that the Mavericks could potentially get. It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, and look, if they could get Larry Nance, do it. But New Orleans ain't letting.
Bingo.
New Orleans isn't trading Larry Nance into the Mavs trade exception. That just is not happening. And even, Rashawn Holmes is the one that, would Sacramento be willing to trade him here? But I think I think they would happily just take their chances with Christian Wood and whatever else they do small in free agency and just, and keep Jalen. I think that is their preferred scenario at this point.
Right. No, that's interesting. Josh, do you have any? I've been talking too much.
Yeah, Mark, I'm just curious, obviously, talking to people that around the league, Wood has bounced around so much, and I know a lot is going to be made of this is going to be the best environment probably he's ever had in his pro career for sure. What do you hear about him behind the scenes in terms of, why hasn't he stuck? I know we've been kind of speculating, but do you, what makes the Mavericks confident that it's going to change for him here? And also, it was such a cheap price. I'm just surprised. Were there other teams interested, and if they other contenders that needed a player to fit that spot in the rotation that Wood could, and they just was there some buyer beware among some other contenders, or what do you think?
Well, look, I think there's always been a level of buyer beware because he's not known as a guy who's really applied himself at the defensive end, so that's going to have to change. Fair or not, he's had the tag of he'll put up numbers, but hasn't really done it in a winning situation. So I mean, there are certainly some things that he's going to have to address and answer and, areas of improvement. But look, I think the Mavs do have a level of confidence because, Sean Sweeney, who's a huge part of the coaching staff, obviously did coach him in Detroit. So they have, I'm sure they had a feel for, what it's like to coach Christian Wood because Sweeney's already done it. So I think the Mavs maybe probably take some confidence from that. But, it's just I think it's just too appealing for both sides. The Rockets clearly wanted an extra first. The Mavs are willing to do that on June 15th, which is, earlier than we typically see trades get consummated like this. So I think the Mavs' willingness to make a move at this point probably factored in. And look, I think Houston is close enough that Mavs fans keep a pretty reasonable eye on it. I mean, they've got Şengün. They're most likely going to draft a big at number 3. So they really didn't need Christian Wood. And they met a couple objectives here by they've got a deal that gets them a first, no extra salary that they don't want, and create some forward minutes. So I just think it was a match from that perspective. Because again, I think that's probably the most surprising thing here is, again, you don't see trades of this magnitude typically struck while the NBA finals are still going on. I mean, although, to be fair, we did see it last season with the Horford deal. Getting Kevin O'Connor's in here now?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I just, this is weird. So we're making a 4-man weave.
What's up?
I didn't see a mute button for 10 minutes, but I see Kevin O'Connor now. On my
well,
yeah. So KOC can weigh in too, but I think it was 2 highly motivated teams to get a deal done. And like I said, last year, we saw the Horford deal come together pretty quick with Oklahoma City and Boston, and now we got another one.
Kevin, what are your reactions to this?
I love it for Dallas, man. I understand the concerns about Christian Wood, the work ethic, and how lean he is on defense. He can get bullied by some bigger guys, but this is the thing. Let's talk about what he can do. Almost 40% from 3, pick and pop guy who can take guys off the bounce, take some pull-ups from mid-range, get all the way to the basket for loud dunks. He can throw down lobs from Luka. Luka's going to have basically – Christian Wood is everything on offense that the Mavs wish Kristaps Porzingis could have been.
The only question is going to be defense, but having DFS and Kleba on the wing, having Bullock, and who knows who else is going to be acquired the rest of this offseason for Dallas. The upside, like they raised their ceiling. That's my main feeling on the Wood acquisition. I think we're going to see the best version of him that we've seen throughout his entire career. We're going to see the version of him that he thought he was going to get when he signed with Houston before James Harden decided to leave. This is what should have happened. It could have happened 2 years ago. And now it's going to happen in Dallas with an even better roster. So, like, as a longtime, Wood defender, I suppose, after his, kind of comeback season in Detroit, I'm really excited to finally see him with a guard who can pass like Luka.
So I read this before you guys joined, but it's worth reading again. Jonathan Fagan, Houston Chronicle, heck of a reporter, had this to say. He was a stand-up guy in an unbelievably tough 2-season stretch, and he should flourish with the Mavs. That's a pretty ringing endorsement from a guy. Y'all beat writers after that do real work, unlike bums like me who are at home. When you're around guys like this, you get a pretty good feel about things, and Fagan didn't have to say anything, and I just think that's interesting.
Can I bring up a devil's advocate proposition? Oh, sorry, did I cut you off, Mark?
Nope, go for it.
Okay, so I'm just curious. Not necessarily to say this is how I completely feel about this deal, but you look at what the Mavericks did in the playoffs, and they were able to get by Rudy Gobert, and they were able to get by DeAndre Ayton, and I know Kevon Looney gave them problems, but, they were still able to make a Western Conference Finals run without center necessarily being a crucial spot for them. They were able to get by with Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber. When you look at this deal and trading the 26th pick, could there have been anything for them out there where they could have maybe used these assets? I mean, assets might be a loose word with the end of the bench guys. I don't know how much value they had around the league, but to try to maybe use that 26th pick to acquire another wing or perimeter player. I'm just curious because, we just watched them have a playoff run where they took down, defensive player of the year Gobert, DeAndre Ayton, who's had a great couple years in Phoenix. Why not go for a wing in that scenario? Why did they still feel like after this playoff run they needed an upgrade like Wood at center?
I guess I would say this. I reported, a couple weeks ago that the Mavs would love to get in the mix for Zach LaVine, and there seemed to be kind of a feeling that they thought there might be a chance to wedge their way in there. But, realistically, how are the Mavs trading for Zach LaVine with their current array of assets? How are they – let's say they wanted to get into the Ayton mix. How could they get him? I also reported after the season that they were not going to go after Gobert. If you trade for someone like Gobert, you've got to play him. You've got to commit to him. This is a one-year experiment. Wood is on a one-year deal. The Mavs don't have to feel obligated to go after him. And, KOC just listed 15 reasons why there is upside here. There is a lot of potential that if it could go well. So I guess the way I would flip that question is if I was, and I do take a lot of my cues from Kirk's sunny moods. I wasn't the biggest fear Mavs fans wasn't the biggest fear Mavs fans had that that it was just re-sign Jalen and no appreciable difference to the roster. And now already 15 days before free agency starts, the Mavs have already made one big change and now they have, time to work on other stuff. That's probably the biggest reason I like it.
Why not when it comes to other stuff? I think, Mark, you reported before the Mavs aren't in on Rudy Gobert, right? Just to be clear.
Yes.
Okay. Why? Why not go for Gobert next? I mean, if you can flip Hardaway with Bertans and some number of future picks and get Rudy Gobert and have
this is violence
with Gobert and Wood, and then you have Kleba and you have DFS and you have Bullock. You can play small, you can play big. It addresses the concerns about Wood having to defend big guys. I mean, I know I'm obsessed with Rudy Gobert, and I'm probably just making.
Thanks, Kevin. It's been great having you.
This, but but why not? I just don't see why they wouldn't have interest in Gobert. I just don't.
I just get the vibe that they do not want to spend $40 million a year on a player who has offensive limitations. And
it's a championship move.
I would classify myself as a Gobert guy too. I don't think you can. I mean, he will never get his, especially if he gets traded this offseason. He's never going to get his just due for what he's done in Utah and how pivotal he's been there and how many mistakes he's covered up for guys who, as the Mavs know better than anybody, have some defensive deficiencies. But I just don't. The Mavs, that's just not a direction they want to go. That's why this is doing something like this is much more, I think, cost effective for their future, because they do want to get back to the table in terms of free agent chasing and stuff like that. So, I mean, if you commit to Gobert, I mean, if you got Gobert and Luka on this payroll, I mean, you're out of that picture.
That's the final move. That's
right.
The thing I've been sort of babbling about, in that the next big move using draft assets is the final move in the first. In the hope, as me as a Mavs fan, understanding you two are, really Josh too. Josh is also an actual journalist. I'm the fanboy up here. It's the last move in Luka's first contract with the Mavericks, and potentially the last if it doesn't work, because that's how things work these days. So that's why I'm just always so skittish about anything involving draft picks, because I think the number of Mavs fans who seem very surprised that the Mavericks owe the Knicks a pick always kills me.
But Kevin, to answer your question about like why not Gobert, doesn't this playoff run kind of answer that question, and the way that they were able to kind of neutralize Gobert in the playoffs and then able to get by a Suns team with Ayton? I know Looney kind of pokes holes in that argument a little bit, but I mean, wouldn't that be the answer?
I think, sort of, but at the same time, I think let's just say that deal were to happen theoretically. It's like. You trade 2 contracts, Hardaway and Bertans, with plus picks, and you get Rudy Gobert back. If Rudy Gobert is switched onto the perimeter with that Dallas lineup, it's not, Donovan Mitchell on the back line with help defense. It's Maxi Kleber or Dorian Finney-Smith, or it could even be Christian Wood back there, like whoever it might be with the lineup configuration. I just think Dallas has so much more surrounding him that it would end up being more like what Boston has with the Robert Williams, Al Horford front court, where you can play with one of those guys or you can play with 2 of them. I would just see it, to me, like, I think Kirk's right. Like, that could end up being the last move of the Luka, of his youth, the last big move. But like, you'd be getting a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, one of the best lob finishers in basketball, one of the best screeners, one of the best hustling players. Like, to me, that's a worthy last move, in my opinion, when you already have so much other talent on the roster. If we were friends, I'm a huge Rudy Gobert guy, though, to be fair, though. I am. So
I think I like Gobert too. I like the Horford Robert Williams. I kind of like that comparison, but I guess the biggest difference is, Horford's on a pretty big contract, but Robert Williams is.
Well, can Rudy Gobert make 6 threes in a finals game?
Yeah, that's.
But maybe Christian Wood can. It's kind of like role reversals. Instead of Horford being the interior guy who can shoot, it'd be Wood who's the perimeter guy who can shoot, and Gobert the interior guy who doesn't shoot. And it kind of flipped between Time Lord and Al Horford. But we're just speaking theoretically. I just wonder what the next move is for Dallas, because like you said, Mark, there's got to be more to come. This isn't it.
But you know what I think? I think it right now it's just staying where they are. Like, the West is going to be so much better that, like, Rudy Gobert, that's not like a put you over the top move, because, like, I think the Mavs know realistically in their heart there's a decent chance that they're going to slide a little bit in this West when you got the Clippers coming back with all their guys. If Denver's healthy, it's not going to be as easy to finish with the 4 seed and win 50. This was not a 52-win roster. I'm sorry.
It wasn't. They lost 10 games in 2022, I'm pretty sure. Something ridiculous. And there's overachievement, and then there's resting on laurels, and without a lot of flexibility. This is quite the interesting thing. The next move, I think I said this earlier, Mavs Moneyball staffer Xavier needs to make the next move, since he's predicted the past 2.
Does he have any projections on what Brunson's going to get?
I mean, he's one of he's a acolyte of Danny LaRue and Nate Duncan, so he's big. He's a big bird rights trap guy. So he's pretty sure that 125 or whatever it is, like the full which at a certain point it stops mattering. I mean, Kevin, you had a great discussion. No, it was your colleague Wosny Lambre on the Ringer group chat about how it's like we should want owners to spend. This is great.
Yeah,
it's great for everyone when teams spend money, and so I'm looking forward to kind of what happens next with Brunson. I hope I feel just my gut instinct is like, why would you want to leave this team? Just because they overachieve doesn't mean they can't find a way to tinker and take a different step.
Is there anything new on Brunson and what could happen there, Mark? Like sign-in trades, double sign-in trades?
I don't. You're amazing. I do not see any way he leaves. I think they are prepared to do whatever they have to do to get him. But I guess the remaining, late in the season, and it's funny, I wrote this whenever the last time I wrote about Brunson, I said, he's projected to be in that 485 range that Van Vliet was, but also possibly exceed it. And everybody in the aggregation world was like, Stein says 485. No, I said right there, it could exceed that. There could be a fifth year. This thing could go to 9 figures. I don't know on June 15th how high it's going to go, but I don't think I think they will do whatever they have to do.
So if they give him that much money, you said 9 figures at like 5 years. Are we talking, max there? Like max for Brunson?
I don't know if it's max, but
close to max maybe.
If it's a 5-year deal, it has to go into 9 figures, doesn't it? So it could be. Is it 105? I mean, do you have to max him? I don't know. I don't know that they have to max.
Well,
him.
what sort of price paying for a player who's entering his prime and capturing his entire prime with a prospective new TV deal in the future? I don't have a problem with it.
And again, I hesitate to even say this because Jalen Brunson is just a massive part of this organization. But, they have no trade assets as it is, or very few. So, I mean, I think that is part of the calculus here too, that, when you sign him, that is something in the back of everybody's mind.
A 26-year-old dude about to enter the prime of his career on a potentially, team-friendly contract. That's super valuable around the league for that next move that Kirk's talking about that might not be you don't think it should be Gobert, Kirk, but Brunson could set you up for somebody even better,
I'm being ridiculous lately in manifesting Kevin Durant because I've heard a lot of weird Kyrie to the Knicks stuff, and I'm like, hey, let's just get strange. It's the off season.
Even Wood could be part of that too. I mean, if he's able to rehabilitate his image across the league, that's a $14 million contract, 26-year-old big. I mean, remember a couple of years ago, me and Kirk talked about this a lot. The Mavericks couldn't really enter these trade combos after they traded for Porzingis because everyone on the roster, you had Kristaps making his max, and then everyone else was making, like $4 to $5 million before Maxey got a second deal, before Dorian got a second deal. Now they got they got Wood at 14. Brunson's going to make more money. Finney-Smith's got his newer contract. They finally, and Tim Hardaway, Dinwiddie, Bertans. Not necessarily saying these guys are all these guys are going to be valuable trade, assets, but they finally have the contracts that if they want to get into these big name, big superstar discussion trades, whichever next one is on the horizon, they finally have the money in the contracts to maybe do something about it. And Brunson and Wood, if Wood can rehabilitate his image, I mean, that's 2 pretty decently young, talented guys that they could dangle out there if they want to get in the mix.
Yeah, look, I hate talking like this because these guys, Brunson and Finney-Smith are, huge parts of the Mavs culture, beloved figures within the organization. But the hardcore reality of it is, I mean, they are both admired by a lot of teams. Had Dorian reached free agency, he would have no shortage of suitors too. I mean, teams love these guys.
I feel like it's been a while since the Mavs have had that.
I mean, I'm just delighted. It's so funny. I have a well-earned reputation for being a grump, but I am not bored. I am extremely entertained. This is obviously very fun talking about all this stuff. I hate to keep
either of you. Josh, you're contractually required to stay as my partner. Actually, you can go too if you want to. But is there anything finals related on the tip of your tongue? Because I've really my main takeaway from these finals is you don't want to overinvest in the center position. That's why I don't want Gobert.
No, it's understandable for sure. I just think, like Mark said earlier, the West is going to change. If Denver is able to step up, then you might be wishing that you had a big, or if the Sixers make the NBA Finals, if they change things up, if Harden comes back in shape, they make a big deal, and Joel Embiid is the opponent in the NBA Finals, then suddenly I think we might be feeling a little bit differently. Or if the Bucks make it back again, same deal there. I mean, I still think size matters. And not to mention with like the influx of bigs coming in the NBA this season, in the draft, Banchero, Holmgren, and then next year with Victor Wembanyama, I think having size is going to be critical.
Do you see those twins? The twins,
the
Amen Thompson and his brother. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, those Thompson twins are so speedy and fat, like quick twitch athletes.
There was a second jump on one of those that looked like what you would do if you combine LeBron James with the second jump of Sean Marion. I was just overwhelmed. Oh well.
Yeah, those kids are talented. I think that 2023 draft class is going to have like very, very many viral players, more so than
Scoot Henderson, my non-relative.
Are there really 1,300 people in here?
This is weird. I'm a big fan. Live radio. Who knew?
You're a monster, Kirk Henderson.
You two.
Kirk Henderson.
What? It's the four-man league.
His media empire is just growing before us.
Oh. Anyways. Well, you guys are welcome. I love having everybody hanging out. I also like that to take some of these questions from the crowd. So, if you want to hang out, do. If you don't, I appreciate it.
It's your room, man. Do you do what you do. You make the decisions.
Okay. Anyhow. All right, I want to bring up, somebody else awesome. Mr. Dameris, how are you? One more time with that unmute button. Brian Dameris is he's done a little bit of everything for the Mavericks and also runs an amazing podcast with Mavericks broadcaster Mark Followell. How you doing, Brian?
Oh, loving some Nico, just striking magic again. How are you, Kirk, KSC, Steiny?
We're having
Good
fun.
to talk to you, Steiny. So does this make the playmaking wing, is there any chance that is something that we can do with the taxpayer, or is that another, as you mentioned, Steiny, kind of Zach LaVine? Are we looking in the trade market?
Well, I just question how you can – I mean, first of all, Jake Fisher reported earlier this week, and I think kind of that there's now suddenly it's turned. A week ago, people were saying, man, Zach LaVine, he's in play. I mean, I heard that so many times, and it's kind of changing this week. I can't pinpoint exactly where that's coming from, but I mean, look, it was always going to be hard for me to picture how did the Mavs manufacture a deal for Zach LaVine. I think CBA Mavs outlined that sign even if the Bulls were like, yes, we are desperate to sign and trade LaVine for Jalen Brunson, that it had more hurdles than a track meet. So and then playmaking wing with just exceptions. I mean, you're not going to that's a pretty tall order to get a playmaking wing who can really make a difference when we're talking about the mid-level exception. So
my man up in Indiana, name's escaping me. He's had injuries the past several years. Yeah, is that ridiculous? I'm just throwing out names. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I'm into TJ Warren for Dallas. That's cool.
I mean, I've seen the best of TJ Warren. I was sitting in the bubble when he went nuts, but I don't know that I would say
Trey Burke also had a heck of a bubble.
Free shooting wing. Shoot all the balls wing, yes. I don't know that I don't know that I would classify him as a playmaker.
Fair enough. I don't even know what's wings are just
KOC, what do you think?
Yeah, not a playmaking wing, but a go get a bucket wing. And like when he entered the NBA out of college, he didn't have a 3-pointer, and now he's hitting over 40% of his threes, doing it off the dribble. I mean, that'd be a nice fit for Dallas. I'd love him. For the guy that he's become, even if the playmaking's never there, it doesn't matter. You just want that guy to score.
I guess my question, and maybe this plays to a little bit of what Brian is asking, is are the Mavericks the kind of team where they could get somebody who might be worth a little more for a little less for a chance to play with a team that is on the rise. Silence.
Yeah, no. Look, I think it's possible, and I think that's the reason why there was that the Zach LaVine thing even bubbled, because I do think the Mavs kind of now played their way into that conversation that, hey, these guys are a team that just made the conference finals. They just won 52 games. They just had one of the 5-6 best records in the league, and guys who want to win will pay them more notice. So I do think there is something to that. But the reality is this is just not a deep free agent class in terms of difference makers. And so, the Mavs, with only the mid-level to spend and an eye on the tax as it is, I don't know that, they're hoping that Christian Wood is the difference maker and that they can obviously keep Jalen without much fuss.
Sure. Yeah, is it crazy to think that this Wood move is more, bolstering what they can do for this season, but also a way to stock up for a 2023 offseason that can get pretty crazy if it wanted to? Maybe be players in that. I'm not necessarily I don't think they'll have cap space, but just in terms of being in the market with trade ammo and maybe doing something there. Maybe they have an eye toward that summer for the next move.
It definitely, positions them better to have another young talented player, whether it's like Mark said earlier, re-signing Brunson, you retain him and the possibilities that could come in the future. And the same thing with Christian Wood. He's on the younger side. Maybe he has a big season with Luka and another team is willing to offer him a significant salary, and maybe Dallas needs to flip him in a trade. I mean, there's just like having good players in your team. Like cap space isn't real necessarily. It is, but players can go where they want to go. So having good players on your team under contract means you're able to flip them anywhere, even if you just get one pick back.
Sorry, many people in this chat's mutual friend, Mr. Rangula, just said something and I didn't realize I wasn't on mute. My bad. I'm in a great mood. I like being in a great mood. It's delighted to be thinking about basketball mid-June. I was looking forward to the draft, but now I can free up that night, I think. Oh, goodness. Brian, you got anything else for us?
Wait, you're not going to watch the draft just because the Mavs traded their first?
I mean, my wife is
I
going
do not,
to kill me.
I do not believe you. I do not believe you.
My wife is going to kill me. She's with our puppy downstairs, and she's coming here 3 times shooting eye lasers at me.
Why?
So this may be my final
show. But why?
Show.
You've got 1,300 people in here hanging on your every word.
And she goes, I don't care. Marriage is the best.
I do have to say,
you've been live 90 minutes.
Right. Yeah, I do have to say on the Gobert issue, and I guess my question in that one is, how are we any different than Utah when they don't have perimeter defense? With Brunson and Luka, you have perimeter defense issues. How is it any different when teams spread out and attack Utah and they couldn't handle it? How would Dallas have been any different?
I think better wing defenders with Kleba, DFS, Bullock. But, I mean, to your point, Brian, like you're right about that on the perimeter. Luka needs to be better, and Brunson's small. Even if he, is tough and tries hard, we've seen throughout the postseason, even with Derek White, teams are attacking Derek White, and he's a great defensive player. It's just he happens to be smaller, and he can't get a contest on, these taller guys who are trying to get switched onto him. So that's going to happen to Brunson just like it did this year. But, I mean, I think like Mark said, again, retaining him is important unless he can be immediately flipped for something of value in return, which, I mean, we'll see what opportunities could pop up there. But, I mean, he's a really good player. I think the pros outweigh the cons in keeping him.
Well, that's one of the things about the Wood trade that, like, okay, because he's on his last year, if the experiment goes great, if he hits his ceiling and maximizes all those gifts that KOC listed off when he first joined in the room, then, okay, the Mavs can really change the way they play. But, the Mavs just went to the conference finals playing 5 out and playing super small. Like, something tells me they're still going to want to play super small a lot of the time. And so, if you go the Gobert route, you got to commit to him for 30 minutes plus a game. So I think that's that's why this Wood move, is so much more appealing to them. That it just, if it works, great. But if it doesn't, we still have this old way of playing in our back pocket where we just got to the conference finals.
The chat is extraordinarily concerned about Wood's defense. I've just been reading some of the comments. And my opinion, not having seen Wood play defense that much, is that if the Mavericks can use Dwight Powell's kind of frenetic mobility, then I don't see why they can't do the same with Wood. Getting him to buy in is a different question. But when you're on your seventh team and perhaps your last big payday, there's some incentive involved in, buying in.
Yeah, and I think
agreed.
Yeah, I agree there.
Yeah. Powell minutes a lot better than what Powell was doing offensively, and he'll be able to hold his own, especially during the regular season.
Yeah, there was a clip showed in the chat earlier of him kind of getting feisty with Kristaps Porzingis in a late season game of Wizards Rockets, and I can't believe I'm ready for basketball again. Thought I was ready for break. I am not.
What I'm curious about is, projecting starting lineups and rotations and things like that. With Wood, it makes sense he's a starter, but, they close the season, with DFS, Bullock, Brunson, Luka, and then Powell, and then they would, bring in Kleba for Powell, and they kind of really stuck to one big, especially in the playoffs. So, I know regular season's a different beast, and you got to manage minutes, and you're not necessarily going to play your best lineups a ton in the regular season. But does this make, Powell's got an expiring contract. I'm not trying to say they need to move him or anything, but if they're committed to 5-out basketball, one big at a time, I feel like, is there room for all three guys? Obviously, there's room for Kleba. They need Kleba. But I'm just wondering if there's going to be a little bit of a log jam, or if they just feel like they're just going to spread the center minutes among those three guys to keep them fresh.
Yeah, I think you're going to see that type of rotation in their front court. And with Christian Wood, I have to bounce after this, but the one thing I'd say is, so I interviewed him 2 years ago in 2020, and he told me his long-term goal was to get up to 240 pounds. I don't know if that's possible. I know with him,
my goal is to get down to 240 pounds.
Yeah, this summer I'm going to get in the best shape of my life too. That's my goal. So, but for Christian Wood, hopefully
I've said that for 30 straight off seasons. It's happened like twice.
Oh God. I hope this is one of those times for me, but I think with Christian Wood, the one thing to factor in though is this the summer entering a contract year where he actually does get in better shape physically? Does he add 15 pounds to get to 230, 235? Because that would make a world of difference in terms of how you can use him on the court. But thank you guys. I appreciate you having me on, and
Kevin, you're a man.
On the deal. Thank you.
Everybody can find all of Kevin's work at The Ringer. He does amazing stuff on YouTube. He does some of these. He does podcasts. He does writing. If there's a thing to do, Kevin may do it.
Mock draft.
Thanks so much, buddy.
Did a mock draft this week. He's in.
I got to update it. Mavs traded their pick.
Hardest working man. Thanks so much, Kevin. Talk soon.
Have a fun night. See y'all.
Brian, you got anything else for us?
Yeah. Question for Steiny. What off the court Christian Wood concerns? Has he outgrown any of that? Obviously, last year there were some issues. Showing up for practices, etc. What should we look at in that area?
Look, I think the jury's going to be out until he gets there and delivers. He's never really been in a winning situation. So whatever questions, concerns, doubts are, I think he's going to have to, he can only silence them by playing well. But, this is really his, he played on a bad Detroit team, put himself in a position to get a nice contract from Houston, and Harden left, and they've been pretty much in tank mode ever since. So this is going to be the first time we see him in a situation with, a team that, championship aspirations. Maybe that's still a bit too far out of the Mavs' reach, but obviously, the Mavs feel like they're back in the Western Conference elite. So, only he can answer the doubters. But again, to me, I just sorry, I'm losing my voice here again. to me, the Mavericks moved 4 guys they weren't going to use for a guy they're definitely going to use. And from that perspective, it is a more than worthy gamble.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is they traded their 26th pick for someone they probably, an immediate starter that they wouldn't have found at 26 in this year's draft. And so that's a home run for me. I guess the question then is, what can they do to shore up a little bit more wing depth at free agency? I guess my last salvo to you, Steiny, is the expirings of Powell and Kleba, if they pick up his option, which I expect they will, or Hardaway with maybe a pick, does that get you in any conversations trade-wise for some other wings out there?
I cannot say to this point that I've heard any rumbles about Hardaway having suitors. So, my instinct would be it's going to be hard for the Mavs to get into the mix to make that kind of sizable trade. And look, I definitely think they want to keep Maxey badly. I don't think they're looking to move him now. In March, people were saying that all of Maxey's trade value is gone, and I think the way he played in the playoffs restored it all. But at this point, I don't want to sit here and rule it out definitively because, again, they just made a trade on June 15th, way sooner than people expected. But I'm not sitting here thinking that they've got another blockbuster in the pipeline.
All right, thanks, guys. I'll let you roll and talk to some other people, but I'm excited. This was a fun little present from Nico.
I am too. Thanks so much, Brian. I appreciate your
And
thoughts.
you know what, man? Look, I don't want to. If people want to get up here and talk, I don't want to sit up here and blab all day. I've said enough. So I'm going to step aside too and let the masses. How long are you going to go? How much permission? How much of a hall pass do you have to keep this thing rolling?
I mean, my wife will take me for everything already, so we might as well just keep going.
Follow and I will pod on this on Monday, so look out.
Brian, the name of your show is escaping me. I was about to Google it, and then my computer died. What's it called?
Take That With You. DAT.
Take That With You.
Take That With You. Go to the Dallas Mavericks YouTube channel, and we will have a video podcast on there and in all of your audio platforms on Monday with follow-up.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Thanks so much, Brian. They brought that out from behind a paywall this year, and it's just 2 guys that know hoops, and it's really worth listening to. Stein, you want me to boot you too?
I saw that. Well, after that paywall shade, I don't know. Maybe I should go, but
hey,
I'll you know what? I'll stay for a few. If the masses want to come up and ask something, I'll stay for a few more. But I don't want to take airtime away from anybody who's dying to come on here and yell at you.
Well, I got to give my buddy, my buddy and Spotify Live outreach buddy here, Mr. Patrick Muldowney, hit the unmute button and talk to us. You as a Suns fan, how are you feeling about this? Rageful?
First of all, more important than the Suns side of things, it's just how beautiful of a night it is on Spotify Live. When I tell you guys that I've been sending messages internally at Spotify about this room for the last hour to our team and how excited I've been and how excited everybody is internally, it's been a joy for me. So that has been Mark, you jumping on, Kirk, you hosting the room, sacrificing your family for this, KOC coming in.
Sacrificing his marriage.
Stein doesn't know this. My son barfed at the moment I pressed start, so I had to mute the room for 5 minutes. It was great stuff.
So this is what I wanted to say is because Kirk, I know you're used to doing these rooms, but this is such a unique one. I think we just wanted to do a quick little reset for everybody that doesn't know. First of all, everybody, make sure you're following Kirk. He's one of the most dedicated and best hosts on this platform and has every Mavericks piece of news covered year round. Make sure you guys are following Stein. Stein has been doing the best weekly rooms, taking callers around the whole NBA.
They're amazing.
Oh, so much fun. If you want it, we're really heading into international basketball season too. It's the only place you can come talk and have these conversations on a daily basis.
You can also hear him when his soccer team loses. He gets sad. Sorry, Mark. Just kidding.
Look at my guy Zaza. Of course, he's in here from Milwaukee at whatever time it is. And he's right there when you said international basketball.
He's all over it. He was in one of our rooms with Hassan Minhaj a few weeks ago. I was firing some international questions at him. But I just wanted to jump on, say thank you from all of us at Spotify Live. This is awesome. This is what we want this to be. To everybody hanging out in the chat, this has been amazing. I know Josh has already written about the trade, and it's up on Mavs Moneyball. If you guys aren't following and subscribed to Stein's Substack, do it now. You're very far behind. Make sure you're following all these guys. And the Content Factory is unbelievable. KOC already has a whole trade breakdown up on his Instagram. He did a whole Instagram reel about it. So
he probably just clipped himself talking to us and then posted it on Instagram Live.
But guys, I just wanted to jump in. I wanted to say thank you. Look, I was really hopeful for a Suns window that we were going to have there. It was about 15 minutes and it closed. I'm okay. I can deal with that. I've accepted that now. I'm a passionate Spotify Live fan now. I'm not just worried about the basketball.
Well, Patrick, that was really nice, and I think I want to clip everything you just said, and we're going to use that like in our podcast feed, maybe like as an ad or endorsement.
That's a good idea. See, this is why I can't be in charge. Thanks, Patrick.
No, man, you have such an audience. You Mavs guys have such an audience.
Early adopters.
I was actually thinking, should I call you to do a finals room, even though your beloved Mavs are not in the finals? Like, if we did a post Game 6, you'd probably still bring 300 people to talk about Warriors Celtics Game 6.
People are just kind of questing for community is what I found. And like, you get this, there's people all over the world, man. It's amazing. I love it.
Well, I like doing things late at night in the rooms, but like I don't know if it seems like the late night rooms are drawing bigger crowds. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm doing it too early by going at noon or 3 or 5. Like, I don't know.
I think you could get away with it. It's pretty, you hung out with us that one night. You'd be surprised the people that are awake. So,
if you wanted to take this another hour, people would stay, wouldn't they?
I may have to. We have like 35 people with questions, and I always feel guilty never getting to them. I'm gonna bring up somebody name I don't recognize, but that's okay. Matthew, how you doing? You've been waiting a long time. What's up?
Hey, thanks for having me on. I think one thing that I've noticed is like a lot of our talent and within our rotation is getting paid pretty well. We don't have any really great contracts or first round picks or second round picks anymore that are playing well below their value. Brunson, he's about to get paid. Is there a concern that with continuation of just like trading their picks and just kind of selling on the draft, that there is a ceiling when you don't have a Grant Williams? Grant's having a bad series, but just generally speaking, when you don't have a lot of that overachieving talent on really low deals, or like, is there a ceiling there as a team?
Ooh, you have to get lucky. You just have to get lucky. And luck is not, it comes from developmental cycles. Like, take a look at Dorian Finney-Smith, undrafted guy for a reason, if we're being honest. And the Mavericks made it work over time. They're going to have to get lucky with some maybe veteran deals. And if there's one undrafted guy that they really have their eye on, I hear what you're saying, because it's the Mavericks just moved a bunch of players who didn't really have a lot of potential going forward. And if the Mavericks can somehow snag, Wood is a guy like this, making $14 million, but it's a guy who potential to outperform his contract is kind of what you're asking, in my opinion. And I think they're just, they're going to have to figure something out. But I told Mark this earlier in the show. Josh is shocked to hear this too, being my podcast partner. There's just some value in giving the Mavericks they've earned the benefit of the doubt moving forward. So whatever they do next, I'm just going to have a hard time doing anything other than smiling and saying, okay, let's see how it goes.
I think they've been pretty good on the minimum guys over the years, and Dorian is probably exhibit A. You have to hit home runs, and you have to find guys like that who turn into something you didn't expect. But look, the Mavs draft record and free agent record, has probably fueled 50 angry shows for Mr. Henderson. But on the maxis, finding guys and doing, I think they've pretty routinely done well in that department.
Hey, Gal Meckel exists, sir.
If it makes you feel any better, Mark, I've always tried to counteract the Kirk vibe a little bit with, like, they're always pretty good when they're not star chasing. I've always felt that they've been pretty good at those low key, kind of lower level moves, like Brandon Wright back in the day, Al-Farouq Aminu they got for a minimum not that long ago. Well, actually, probably is that long ago. But yeah, I agree with you. They're always pretty good at that.
I guess my only counter to that would be we're at the point of the cycle where all those guys are getting paid. The DFS, the Brunson, So, like, and the problem is we have these larger contracts where Dinwiddie's far out, getting paid way too much. Bertans is getting paid way too much. So, like, and that's the reason why we're in cap hell. But it's just trying to find that balance of having role players who are not necessarily overpaid, because I think everyone has earned their contracts in terms of, obviously whatever Brunson gets paid and Finney Smith. But, like, we just don't have anybody that's, at a bargain deal in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, just to tease our man Josh in the chat, maybe Josh Green will find some more applicable, consistent basketball skills. That could be something. You never know. Well, thank you, Matthew.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
I actually unfortunately do have to go now, I apologize. But I think you guys will. I think if conditions allow me to return, I will check to see if you guys are still going. But,
go forth. Thank you so much for your time, Mark. You're the best.
Yeah, appreciate it, Mark.
Guys, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to. I'm actually not in Dallas as we speak, so good to speak. Good to speak to my neighbors from afar.
You as well, sir. And everybody, go to Marc Stein Substack. Subscribe. Pay for good work. Granted, none of you pay me. None of my work is good. Different problem. All right, Josh, do you want to hang out? Because I'm going to fly through some people.
No, I'm good. I mean, I'm kind of in the background getting ready to write some analysis on the move for the site tomorrow, but I love hanging out. This is fun.
Nick, I'm sorry. I didn't see your question. I would have brought you up earlier as the actual Avengers were assembling. So what's happening?
Guys, can the Mavericks still get Zach LaVine? Can they get Zach LaVine? Can they trade? Can they trade for Zach LaVine? Is that still a thing?
My favorite, like, thirsty ass Mavs fans. Just, I want more. Like, I want more.
It's the Bo Burnham daddy made you some content, right? Like, he's just gonna keep singing that over and over again.
Oh, so how you feel? How you live?
Man, you just muted yourself. But the trade is fascinating to me because now it's a little bit of a risk. You got Christian Wood, who is an expiring deal, and he's also a little bit of he had an attitude problem in Houston, but I think I would have an attitude problem in Houston playing with all those guys too. Like, how many games did you watch of Houston this year where it's just like Jalen Green has the ball now, Josh Childress or Josh Christopher has the ball now? Like,
so you could have ended that sentence with, "How many games of Houston did you watch?"
At least they played the Mavericks 3 times. You watched at least those. I know that, but
that's true. No, that's a good point.
I feel what you're saying. It's an interesting risk, and I think it's one worth taking. I think it's a win for the Mavs. The problem is, like, he's not the rim protector that Nico Harrison said that they wanted to get. So, I don't know. I heard some guy named KOC talking about Rudy Gobert, but I don't think they're getting anybody else.
Right. Whew. Man, I'm not really, like, it sucks. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just getting jazzed up by everybody's excitement, but this is just nice. And
it's just fun, right? Trades are fun.
I kind of just want to take a nap until free agency starts now. Just not produce any more content.
No, you'll be on every single trade rumor. There'll be Jake Fisher will come out with some. The Mavs are currently in talks with, and we'll just be all over it. We'll be all ready. This is this time of year. It's the best time of year. It's what Stein calls what does he call it? The transaction game. That's what we like more than the court sometimes.
Right.
The wheel never stops turning.
Yeah.
Except this year, the court was actually super fun. So we were okay with the court stuff this year. And now I think with Christian Wood, it at least gives them some more options on offense. And it gives them – one of the problems they had last year was you either had Dwight who could roll or Maxey who could space the floor. And now they have a guy that, at least on offense, can do both at the same time, which is super nice.
I'm pretty pumped. I mean, I just think the versatility of lengthy lineups right now is they can do some stuff. I mean, where everybody's been rightfully making fun of that terrible Bleacher Report tweet, but I could also see Jason Kidd like doing that, you know? Like, he can play with neat.
He can play with Maxey and he can play with Dwight because of his ability to space the floor and step out, right? Like, so it's not ridiculous that he would play that front court. Now, I don't know about that being a starting unit, but here we are.
Yeah. It's just fun to have more guys that can walk and chew gum at the same time, I feel like.
Yes, that's right.
Which might be putting it a little too harshly, but you know what I mean.
My question is this another failure for the Dallas Mavericks front office before? Because they had Christian Wood. Christian Wood. He was part of the Orlando Mavericks that went and won the Orlando Summer League.
Which year?
2017.
And did he not go to Vegas with them for some reason?
I don't think so. I had to Google search like Christian Wood Mavericks Summer League and just like search through a bunch of pages and finally found one on like a Orlando Sentinel something or other. But that was the team amazing. with Ding Yingyuan and Jameel Warney and Jonathan Motley. And,
that was a fun team. You're right.
That was fun. But
that's outstanding, buddy. I love it.
The other thing about Christian Wood is he's never been on what good teams has he been on? So I think maybe the system and the coaching and the stability could help in that area.
That's been kind of the main argument, and I'm sort of stuck on. I had a Bucks fan message me, and it's like, I'm really sorry, Wood is terrible. But then there's the Houston Chronicle guy saying, hey, this is important. Like, this is the thing. He's been Fagan's like, he's been a good guy. Like, that matters a lot to me because, number one, he doesn't have to do that because you'll notice that it becomes evident when you follow certain beat writers and they don't have anything to say when players move on. You know, sometimes it means nothing. Sometimes it means a lot.
Everybody's got to make a comment, though. You got to have a comment on everything.
So here's hoping to amazingly weird and funny Brad Townsend tweets on the way out the door, just like emojis followed by names. You know, I love Brad.
Followed by just going after anybody that said anything bad. I got some stuff to do. The podcast is already out, but I have some other Locked On things.
Well, everybody go listen to Locked On Mavs. I'm sure everyone here already is going to do that. All right, buddy. Thanks so much.
See you guys.
Bye.
All right. Let's go with Chris, who has been waiting. What's up, dude?
Hey, the one time we have over 1,000 people, I get on. It's kind of got some stage fright here now.
Nah.
No,
we're all fellow internet weirdos here.
Heck yeah.
I can't put that clearly enough. Like, if you're on the internet after 2 hours listening to a show like this live on your phone, you are my people.
Yeah, like watching a show with my wife, I was like, gotta get on a Spotify Live. She's like, what's that? I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
You haven't seen me all season long getting on these things after all the games? No. But, this kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, wasn't expecting us to do anything until at least draft night, but I don't keep up with college basketball or draft stuff. So, and I know we have a new GM, but, you know, obviously with the Mavs draft history, this is great. I mean, we got the question is, why isn't Dwight Powell included in this trade? But maybe
brutal. Poor Dwight Powell taking strays. I love it.
I was reading the long list of people getting traded, and I was like, where's Powell? Like, why isn't Powell on this list? But, you know, it's okay. It's okay. You know, they got another good player. I don't think that they're done. I know, obviously, we've all mentioned that you're kind of limited on what the Mavs can do, but let's say this trade happened 2 months ago. I mean, we just made it to the Western Conference Finals. Do you think that we might have made it to the finals? Like, I don't know. So I don't really have much to say, honestly. I was kind of tired, but this is a good trade. Hopefully, they could just make some more things happen. Is there anything else on the radar that's a possibility? I mean, I know, like I said, we're kind of limited on what we can do, but is there anything you foresee maybe possibly happening? Or
that was kind of why I asked Stein the question, you know, those guys the question about guys maybe signing for less. Like, you know, there's people in chat, Goran's never going to come here. He's never going to be mad. Okay, but, you know, the Mavs have, like, roster spots open now. And so if you're – I'll just put it like this. I would say they're in, like, the top 8 teams for people who would be considering going to play for other good teams. And so that opens up a world of possibilities that just has not been here.
Can I throw out a name?
Please.
I don't know. I have to imagine he's too expensive for the mini mid-level, but if we're looking for another wing in that range, what about Gary Harris?
That the chat was going nuts about that earlier. So that,
okay,
that
I missed that. I haven't
thing.
been looking at the chat. Well, thank you, chat. But
Victor, my man Victor Lugos has been yelling about him for 45 solid minutes. So Victor, it's okay.
Well, yeah, his last contract was huge. So it just like he made $20 million last year, which makes me think it'd be crazy for him to take a contract that's like, I think our mini mid level is about like little underneath 6.5 a year. So that would be a huge pay decrease for him. But I mean, when he got traded to Orlando, I mean, he pretty much was off the radar. So he's kind of getting toward the end. You know, he's not old, but you know, he's been around the league enough. I mean, I wonder if he's, you know, Kirk, you always talk about guys that make their money, and once they make their money, they're more willing to be, you know, for role players, they're more willing to take a little less, and because if they're ready to win, and maybe he falls into that bucket, but he'd be great, even though he has like really terrible injury history. But I mean, what else are you gonna do with, you know, a $6.5 million per year slot that you have basically?
Right.
But
I don't know.
Lastly, this just was a good ride. Obviously, I mean, we've been out of the playoffs for a few weeks now, but it's just crazy. If you really think about it, it just happened recently. Just think how far we got, just with what we had, a 7-8 man rotation. It's nuts. I mean, now we're adding a good player. I feel like with the culture in Dallas, Jason Kidd. I mean, we had Dinwiddie come from the Wizards, and wasn't there a reputation about him, you know, having bad vibes? But yeah, like everybody's mentioning, they were just not a bad team. I mean, he's going to be coming to play with Luka. He just saw how far the Mavs just got. I mean, he's in a contract year. If he wants to get paid, you know, I mean,
right. There are few players better that you can say, hey, I'm going into a contract year. Let me go play with a guy who gets the ball to people in their shooting pocket.
Yeah, we got Luka. I mean, I'm sure they'll keep Brunson, but I mean, we have a bunch of solid role players. I mean, that's kind of how you win a championship anyway. You don't have to have a 3-headed monster, a top-heavy team, because if one player gets injured and you got a bunch of G League players, I mean, you're going to be like the Nets or whatever, get knocked out the first round. So
yeah, like I said, it's kind of been the trend of this playoffs. You look at the teams that are top-heavy with max contracts, Lakers, Nets, you know, and the teams that are in the finals, Boston, which pretty much kind of smoothed their cap kind of across like 5 guys that can all do things and play, and Warriors kind of like that a little bit to a smaller degree. But yeah, that might be like the trend because it's a copycat league. Teams are going to look at what Boston did. They're going to look. I mean, you can't really look at what Golden State did because that's you can't really replicate that at all.
And guys, I really wanted a Mavs Celtics finals. This I'm still like I'm still hurting from. I know we got knocked out in 5. It's not like we went to 7 games, but damn, like. Wouldn't we have had home court advantage too? I mean, against the Celtics?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Sorry, Elliot. I thought I muted myself on the typing. It's hard to run a website and host a Spotify Live. My apologies.
But yeah, I'll get off here. But it's been a great year. I'm glad, you know, a little early head start on the trades and all. This is great. I mean, I think Nico's doing a great job, and hopefully just able to do something with what they're limited to right now.
Right. Well, thanks so much, Chris.
Yes, sir. Y'all have a good day.
Yeah, our man CBA Mavs turned in a piece on what the Mavericks, like how the Mavericks could keep Christian Wood because he's going to be an unrestricted free agent next summer. Just an interesting tidbit in here. He talks about a potential contract extension, which the earliest it could happen is the first 6 months after a trade, but the Mavericks could extend him. I'm going to publish this shortly. It's this stuff is nerd heaven. Anyways, I'm glad he's doing this. I am editing him right now. Let me see here. Oh, there's Scott. Hi, Scott. What's up? I'm so bad at this.
You speak my name, and I show up. That's what happens.
How you doing, buddy?
Doing fine. Hey, yeah, I just wanted to turn in that piece so people could see that, if you are interested in keeping him long term. Hey, one thing that is really, really tough for those of us who write articles is that. His name's Wood, and we have to say stuff like raises and extends and all sorts of stuff. And this is going to be this is a problem.
Well, I really want to write his name as Christian
Josh Bowe.
Woods.
Exactly.
It's terrible.
Well, well, Josh is like, hey, when you write an article, the proper way is use his full name, and then after that, use just his last name. And I'm like, I can't do it, man. I'm going to keep using his full name because I cannot. Yeah, so that's one issue that is going to be there for all of us for a while. But yeah, the idea is that if we want to extend him, I don't know exactly how the calendar works because he signed November 24th, 2020. They've been adjusting the calendar. And so 2 years won't actually be in November. It'll be earlier. Just kind of like how the Josh Richardson TPE was supposed to expire July 31st, but they actually made it kind of run the same length of the season that it was under. So I think it'll be in July that we could start extending him. And it's just 2 years is all you can tack on the first 6 months after you acquire him, basically giving him a 20% increase and then a 5% increase after that, exactly what Jonas Valanciunas got from the Pelicans. And then after that, so sometime in January through June 30th, we could extend him up to that second amount that I showed, which is like a total of $90 million, including the $14 million of this year. So yeah, and then we have bird rights after that. So if you are a fan of him and want him to stick around, Mavericks have lots of ways. This is actually really good. I mean, if they're not going to get cap room, turning that kind of crappy end of the bench into like possibly a useful player for trade or to keep really, really helps a lot. So that you don't just have things like last year where Nico Melli and JJ Redick expired and just went into nothingness, to turn Burke, Boban, Chris, and who am I forgetting, Brown into something that's useful is really, really good for them for the future. Anyway, I just wanted to come on, clarify those points. Hopefully the piece will help people out.
I press published. You did good stuff here. So it's their options are just to granted go click the piece, everyone, but their options are he becomes a free agent, they re-sign him, or they somehow find an extension, which the extension part of that is really interesting to me in that I don't, extending somebody like that.
Yeah, the other thing I did want to comment on was just the idea that, hey, maybe this allows us to get Levine or any of those guys. I liked how Nick was joking about that. But yeah, like now we actually have right around the same salary, but we have to fill up more roster spots, which each one costs like the minimum is $953,000. So
Josh Bowe, starting or backup power forward.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is that they're going to be in the tax. No, don't try to calculate any sort of sign and trade. I mean, it's just an uninteresting conversation to me personally. Okay. But if other people want to have it, that's completely fine, and I won't try to burst their bubble too much. But look for players that are already under contract if you're trying to do a trade. But right now, I see the route is this is our big man acquisition. Let's get a wing using that TPE, MLE, maybe get Dragic to come in on a minimum, and go forward.
Man, thanks so much, man. Appreciate you.
See ya. Bye.
All right. My man Mason in the chat is just having a great time with puns. All right. Let's guys, I'm going to fly through people, but please do your best let's keep it brief because I don't want to die. Tyler.
What is up, guys? Y'all already have heard enough about the Wood trade itself, so I want to get into a different concept that has been going through the chat, and then I had a question about too, and it's good that Scott is here for this. There's been some talk about, the Philly with Danny Green and the 23rd pick in this year's draft.
Perfect, Mav, 4 years later.
I mean, hey, if we're just going to have empty roster spots waiting around, at least this guy is an empty roster spot who gives you a first-round pick. So, I don't know if that's something that can be done. Scott can obviously attest to that. But I think if it's possible, they should explore that option to even just get an extra first-round pick. That's stuff that winning teams can do to get extra assets.
So what would even be I'm trying to think, would it be using, what would the trade be to get Danny Green and that pick here? Would it be the Mavericks absorbing?
I think.
Can they absorb Green with the trade exception?
I think Philly just wants to do it to get off the contract, and so we would just take him into the TPE, but I'm not 100% sure how all that works. But
yeah, we
definitely, if they're offering a pick to just get off the contract, I don't see why not.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and now that they have all those roster spots, they can have their first-round pick. I remember before the Wood trade, it was, do they trade their first-round pick, down the line because they don't have any roster spots. So yeah, that makes a little sense there. One thing that you have to think about though is Daryl Morey is in charge of the Sixers. And I don't know if Mark Cuban and Daryl Morey have kissed and made up, because I know they did not like each other there when Morey was running the Rockets. So I know that's like kind of like hearsay and stuff like that. Like, I don't know if that would actually hold up the end of the deal, but you'd be surprised how much like relationship matters when you need to get deals done. So I wonder if that would come into play.
Yeah, true. I just think it's something that we could kind of get ourselves into that conversation now that we have the extra roster spots available to, potentially get an extra asset. Even if we don't use the pick, it's something else we can trade. We can actually trade.
We'll see, man. I'm not sure. Tyler, you're great for hanging out for so long.
You know it. Appreciate it.
All right. Be good. Talk soon. All right. Garrett, how you doing?
Hey, how are y'all doing?
Not bad.
You're hanging in there.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just happy. I mean, it's not
Happy is good.
To talk about again.
I enjoy this. Enjoy it. We are damn it, life is too short. Just, granted, it's nice to be talking to friends about this is where my head is.
Yeah, I mean, I was just laying around and then my phone just started blowing up and I just see people freaking out about Christian Wood. And when I saw the first initial Shams tweet where it said multiple players, I was like, oh, they're going to take Maxey from us or something. I was like, oh, they'll get somebody. And then when the tweet came out, I was crushed about Boban because now Boban has to go down to Houston. But outside of that, I mean, just end of the bench guys and a pick for a guy who can play. I mean, it's a steal.
Yeah, I was right there with everyone else. I think it was Chris who came up who was like, oh, well, that means Dwight Powell's gone. Like I think that was the first thing I typed into our Slack after someone said, hey, the Mavericks just traded for Christian Wood. I was like, okay, who was it for? And they're like, well, they don't have the players. They just said expiring. And I'm like, oh, okay, so that's got to mean Dwight Powell. And the fact that they didn't trade, the fact that no one from the rotation was touched is pretty.
I thought it would be like Josh in the first or somebody, but just nobody.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes both. It's kind of both ways, where it's like that's awesome in terms of the risk. It lowers the risk tremendously. Like,
right,
great job. But then on the other hand, the other part of my brain is just like, well, why was he that cheap? But as we've been talking about for the last hour, there's reasons to be hopeful.
Free Şengün and just let him have fair play with Banchero and
totally
just give it to the young guys because they'll start Green, Porter Jr., whoever number 3 is, Şengün, and I don't know, Christopher, Jayshawn Tate.
Yeah. Right. And
so
then
they'll just be another fun young team, and then
he's expiring. They weren't going to bring him back.
They'll go for Wembanyama or something. But
yeah, that makes sense.
Oh man, well, thanks so much, Garrett.
Yep, that's all I had. Have a good night.
All right. Yep, you too. Where'd Krishna go? He was in here and then he wasn't. Oh well. Aaron, how you doing? Aaron, you there? I can hear Aaron. That's okay. Aaron, request to come back up. If you're not seeing the speaker button, we'll bring you back up in a bit. Jared, what's up?
Yeah, g'day. How's it going?
Good. How you doing? Middle of your work day?
Yeah, just finished up.
Outstanding. Yeah. Jared's in Australia, for those of you who don't have ears.
Yeah, got a couple of quick things to go through. One thing with Wood production, you got to bear in, I'm pretty sure Houston basically had no point guards on their roster. Like they got Porter Jr. Not Porter Jr. The guy that they were jamming in as the point guard, Porter. But he's not really
right. No, he's on his way out of the league.
Besides himself, and Jalen Green's the same. He's a gunning. So Wood's easy buckets should increase a lot more with Brunson and Luka, even Dinwiddie off the bench. The thing with somebody was mentioning Danny Green. I'm pretty sure his contract is non-guaranteed. So I think Philly are shopping him and the pick to get another decent vet. They're not just trying to dump his contract. It's for I can see when I look at the salary.
Yeah,
page.
I mean, but his knee is so you got it. That's a tough. His knee is, man, he hurt it. If then in the playoffs.
Yeah, but I'm saying they're not just trying to. They don't need to pay to get rid of him. They can just cut him.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So they're trying to use his, and then so they can trade him to another team. So they can trade him for Powell, and we could just cut Green and evaporate Powell's contract kind of thing. That's the kind of thing, the deal I think they're going for.
Right.
To get a useful vet for their bench and using the pick for that instead of adding a rookie that's not going to contribute for 3 years.
True.
And I was wondering whether I can't remember how bad Rubio got injured. Is he because he got dumped to the Pacers because he got injured. So I was wondering whether he'd be a reasonable backup option if Dragic decides to go somewhere else.
So it's torn ACL, obviously. A guard at that age. I mean, he's not exactly an old man, but you got to be concerned with somebody that tears their ACL. You want, we obviously got a guy with that, Spencer Dinwiddie. Years, probably a reasonable projections. That seems a little bit tough for a team in this timeline.
Yeah, because that was right around the trade deadline, wasn't it?
Right.
So, you're not going to get him until after the All-Star game, I guess. Same with Joe Ingles. I think he'd actually be a pretty good player, but he's
right,
older, and he's going to be rehabbing for another almost year.
Which is so disappointing because Ingles is just if you're talking. I mean, we know this now, but he was the thing that held the Jazz together.
Yeah, that's what I think people sort of didn't take enough notice of. As soon as they traded him, their chemistry went to garbage.
Yep.
It just was blatantly obvious that Mitchell just hated Gobert's guts and just refused to pass him the ball.
Pretty wild.
So I think they just need to gut their team and start from scratch. But the trouble is they're not going to, when you got somebody of Mitchell's star level, even though I don't think he's good enough to be a number one on a contender, they just can't let him go if he's willing to stay because just their market, they'd have to go through another 15 drafts to get somebody like him. And I mentioned in the chat, people didn't like it that much, was Thibault as a bench wing. Obviously, his offense is terrible, but he's top 5 wing defender in the league. And when you've got Luka and Brunson and even Wood, in terms of scoring, I think his lack of scoring would not be as big a deal as it looks on paper anyway.
Look, if there's one team in the NBA that can make use of a wing that plays defense and cannot shoot, the Dallas Mavericks have lots of experience handling those players. So bring them on. I'd take them for sure.
Yeah, I think Hardaway would be a pretty good bench scorer for Philly. But I think you mentioned that Morey and Cuban don't like each other that much. So.
Morey apparently, after Dwight Howard signed in Houston, he apparently texted Cuban and was like, "How much for Dirk?" And Mark took that.
Yes.
Took slight. I think it was meant in jest. Get pissed Cuban off to high heaven.
Yeah. And I think there's some more because Morey was able to, the Rockets were relevant in a way that the Mavericks weren't in that era, and Morey was starting to get the reputation of the smart analytics guy that I think Cuban kind of had, in the early 2000s. So those guys just don't like. I mean, back then, I don't know if the patches have been mended, but when Morey was in Houston, I know those two guys were not necessarily fond of each other.
That's right.
Does that mean
thanks so much, Jared.
Does that mean he's holding grudges against chairs that hold doors shut as well or something like that?
Probably.
All right, I'll head off. Just one last thing: how bad is the summer league team going to be with no?
I'm heading to Vegas, so I might get some minutes. We'll see. All right, Jared.
All right,
thanks so much. Have a good day. All right, let's fly through some people because I got to go soon. I apologize. Krishna, what's up? Hit that mute button one more time.
One more time again. There we go. Looks like you're double tapping.
There we go. Oh.
And you did it again. It's an impressive number of mute hits.
The app's a little buggy for me sometimes.
It is. No, it's not him. It's definitely the app. Stein sent me a screenshot of him not having the mute button. So, they update it like every 4 days. Christian, are you there?
Oh, I'm there. It's just not.
Yeah,
man.
You're on the fritz. I'm sorry. Let's try this again later, all right? Appreciate you trying. All right. James, what's up? James Marion, how you doing? You there? Man, he's got Houston uniforms. Man, those are great looking. I like that baby blue. Oh, well, we'll try again later. Let's go to my man Drew. I know Drew's app works.
Yeah. It's working. Hey, I've been missing you. I've been traveling. I was a couple weeks in Alaska, and next week I'm going to Florida, so it's my travel
I didn't post much. I've been kind of a slack ass. I got messages this morning like, am I missing shows? I'm like, no, I'm just not posting.
Oh, okay, because I saw you come in there a few times, but I missed it, But, anyhow, I just clicked on and came, and then I came on. I said, what? Is Kirk not saying anything? And, yeah, you had the thing with your kid and everything like that, so that threw me for a loop for a minute.
Apologies about that.
Yeah. No worries. It was a great show. You had KOC and Marc Stein, these guys. That was worthwhile for sure. And you guys really answered a lot of my questions. The trade exception, I didn't think the trade exception was involved in this, but you guys cleared it that it was not, and that's something that can still be used. I like this, and I think, what you guys are saying, right? It just kind of, I had my heart set on Miles Turner, so I'm a little bit bummed by that. But I'm really glad we didn't get Rudy. I'm with you on Rudy. That contract and what he can do, it's just not worth it at all.
Yeah.
And I'm all with you on Hustle. Man, when he does that thing with Boban, yeah, I'm 22. Who's this? My son. How old is he? 12.
It's a well-acted movie, but it made me want the star. Not Adam Sandler. What's his name? Shoot.
Herman Gomez.
Juancho.
Yeah,
I was like, hey, can Juancho be available? I was all in.
Is he still playing?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on Denver
for a while. Juancho Hernan Gomez, Spanish professional basketball player. Everything's about hustle. That's funny.
He did a great acting job in that.
Utah.
Oh, he's in Utah now?
Oh, yeah, duh. Yeah, he played in the playoffs.
That's right.
Did he really?
Yeah, he did. He only played like
full
10
MLE,
minutes a game.
Bo Cruz.
Oh, okay. But hey, he did a great acting job in that. I thought that was pretty wild. He may have featured in that. But anyway, that, and like I said, you guys answered most of my questions. And like I said, the only bummer part of it was I just kind of had my heart set on Miles Turner.
I feel you. He's been a man about Dallas too. He's like,
yeah, he's there all the time. I think he wants to be there, and that's.
He went to Josh's high school.
He did.
He lives here.
He grew up. He was born in the same town that I was born in.
Oh, so he's from the DFW area.
Yeah,
then.
he was at a Wings game today.
He's from Bedford, Texas's own.
Man, I still, if we can find a way to get him, I think that him and Luka would just be a match made in heaven, as far as I'm concerned. And give us that rim protection that Wood may be lacking. But. We'll see, but we got roster spots now, so Nico certainly can't be done. And like I said, like you said, it's just nice to see movement, something happen.
That's right.
So I'm all for that, and none of those guys were going to play anyway. I would have liked to have seen Bertrand's thrown in there, so maybe we get off that contract. But that's too much to wish for.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Drew.
You got it, man.
Talk soon. All right, Christian, you've been hanging out forever. What's up, buddy?
Hey, good to talk to you, Kirk.
Sorry I made you wait for so long, man. I apologize.
No, don't worry about it. Great room as always. Really enjoyed it. I guess I had one question. I want to make sure you guys could get out of here at a decent time. But For our taxpayer mid-level, what would you prefer? A rim protecting big or someone that can, again, we know the options are limited, but would you prefer kind of going after maybe like a Tom Bryant or something like that, or go kind of the Joe Ingles or Otto Porter Jr. potentially, like that kind of route, get a wing?
I would prefer a wing. Josh, you?
Yes, I'm wing too, if only because if you get another big, I mean, that's Wood, Powell, Kleba, and then another big, and you're starting to run out of minutes, I think. So I definitely lean wing with that mid-level.
Yeah, that's what I'm still really big on the idea of Joe Ingles and taking that chance just because I think, both being a veteran, he's a career 40% three-point shooter, can pass, all those kind of things. So I'm in on it, but wanted to be quick. Appreciate you fellas. Hope you each have a great night, and thanks for having me up.
Everything, buddy. Talk soon. Logan, what do you got? Be quick.
How's it going?
Good, man. Thanks.
Hello?
Oh, we're doing good. I got you.
Yeah, it's good. Thanks for joining. What you got?
Oh, well, at first I was like, Christian Wood. I think we've all talked about the defense and the bad attitude stuff, but I mean, like, it's a buy low, I mean, contract year. I just feel like he's going to be really motivated. Probably the last chance for him to make serious money. So for what we gave up, I don't know. Like you guys said, it's just kind of like fun. There's some upside. We really never have upside in the front court. So, I think there's some occasions for him and Maxey to play together. I think in general, it just makes us deeper without having to really give anything up. I was going to ask,
true.
I think the tax is probably scarier than we want to admit when it comes to the fact the roster spots opened up. I was like, could they use the taxpayer mid-level and the traded player exception? And I was like, I just don't know if that's they want to get that deep in the tax because they will.
I don't think Cuban wants to.
That's not my money. I'm not crying for Mark Cuban's wallet.
No, me either by any means. I'm all for it. I just assume, I think I read somewhere it would.
Yeah. I understand, man. Well, thanks so much.
No problem.
All right, talk soon. Okay. Inadvertently almost banned my guy there. Hi, Shane. How you doing? One more time with the mute, Shane. All right, come back to Shane if he's able to request there again. Tom Cato. Hi, Tom.
Why the hell are y'all still recording? I wrote an entire article, and I logged back in, and I see your tweets, and I'm like, Kirk Henderson, Josh Bowe.
Wait,
My
man.
goodness.
You don't
It's
get
Wednesday night.
grassroots consistency. I'm already in for a penny. I'm in for a pound. The audience likes this. It's the same. The vault. We still have 1,300 people listening, which is blowing my mind. If it was starting to drop, I'd maybe want to turn it down. But people are interested. So what you got for us, friend? How you living?
I'm good. I mean, I had to cancel some plans tonight, but they were not plans involving Christian Wood.
Sure.
So all is good. Yeah, dude, I think it's interesting. My focus, what I just wrote, was pretty focused on how it was smart to use the 26th pick to get off 4 roster spots that they had to get off of, and if you're going to take back a semi-low risk, flyer with upside at center, yeah, why not? I mean, I think that's pretty good dealing. I'm not sure that Christian Wood is the type of defender who can play much past the first round of the postseason. I haven't listened at all. So how much are you guys aligned or not aligned with that? I don't really care about the attitude stuff. Obviously, if it's an issue, it's an issue, but it seems like it was kind of contained to a single outburst or it wasn't indicative of his overall career. And he is somebody who I think will positively be affected by a culture the Mavericks have really established over. Well, but my question is like, all right, is this like even a defensively viable player once you get deep? And I'm curious how much you guys are aligned, or I'm assuming, because we're always aligned on this, that you guys might be sort of in the same place.
I mean, Stein came on and casually stabbed me in the ribs and was like, yeah, I thought you wouldn't like this move. But I have to give the Mavs front office benefit of the doubt. It mattered a lot to me that Jonathan Fagan of the Houston Chronicle was like, this guy's been great for 2 years, and it wasn't an easy situation. And to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I think we count you as a beat guy. You know, you don't have to write posts every day, but you're a beat reporter. When you're around these guys every day, it's you don't have to say something nice about a guy on the way out the door. And this man, frankly, does not have a good reputation, meaning Wood. And so it's like, that's really fascinating to me that he said that. He's like, yeah, he's a great guy to be around for 2 years. He was good in a tough situation.
Yeah, and I checked in with somebody at Houston, and they said the same thing. You know, maybe he's not Theo Pinson. Look, he's not that, but he was not a consistently negative person within the locker room, is what I was saying.
Right. So,
and I'm kind of right that for me, it's just I honestly was unaware that he was on it expiring. I thought it was some part of my brain.
Yeah.
I thought he had one more year, and I think that just changes the risk dramatically, and it just makes sense because you look at where they are and where can they go, and when you're a capped out team, and they're going to be capped out for a while with Luka's mega contract, and when they sign Brunson, like you kind of have to do these you have to take these kind of risky moves. I mean, like you can look at Milwaukee. I mean, it's a bit lower scale player, but like there were so many red flags about Bobby Portis. Remember, he had like attitude issues, or like, was he going to be a guy that would work hard enough to be on a good team? And Milwaukee took a chance on him, and he ended up playing pretty well there, within their culture and their system. And I know Woods, it's a different player, but just when you get to that level as a team, when you're capped out, like you just kind of have to do this, like especially when you're not losing any main rotation guys, and it's only one pick. And I know I've been killing the Mavericks for years about just kind of throwing away first-round picks like candy, and I wish that they would draft some guys and develop them there. But when it's for someone that's 26 years old and could maybe be a building block, and if he's not a building block, he's at least something that maybe can be desirable to other teams down the road, it just makes sense to me. I just don't I don't know why you wouldn't do this, even with potential downsides of maybe he doesn't become a good defender. If he doesn't, like, what are you missing if it doesn't work out, other than that 26th pick, which, quite frankly, the Mavericks haven't proved that that's a great asset for them when they.
He's gonna put up raw numbers next to Luka. There's no question about that, and you'd have to think that, let's say they go into next season with Spencer and Christian Wood seems like a better offer than Spencer and Tim Hardaway Jr. or Spencer and Dwight Powell. So if you get to a point where it's like, all right, this guy he's not fitting, but there's X center available. I don't know. I'm not a Miles Turner guy. I know a lot of people are, but he's up this year, right? That's why the talks about it. Yeah. I'm getting my stuff mixed up, but I'm so bad at just like throwing names out. But if there's somebody at the deadline that you like better, and it's kind of like we can combine two people into one and just add talent that way, you have to think that makes sense, or just like seems more appealing than what the Mavericks would have had going into the deadline if they kept the roster kind of consistent. So yeah, I agree. I think it makes sense. Here's one more thing, and then I'll bounce out of here. One thing that I doubt y'all have talked about. I'd be surprised, but this has gone on for 2 hours. The Marquise Chris contract and getting guaranteed a second year, they had to do that with like something like this in mind, right? Because there's no other way that made sense on paper.
I lost my mind. I didn't realize he was on a second year. I was like reading the player review of that our guy Ben turned in and was like, wait, he has another year? How?
Yeah, fully guaranteed.
Yeah.
Not an option, not a team option, that still doesn't make sense to me. Like, at least put a team option on there, I guess. Like, I can't remember. I don't think that would affect if you made the trigger date early enough. That shouldn't affect it. Actually, it might. So maybe they did it specifically with this in mind. I actually realized that earlier today. I was like, how did they do that? But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that this is like kind of the specific scenario. Maybe not this one exactly, but this was a specific scenario where they looked at, the 3 end of the bench guys, and then they kind of looked at Chris and was like, okay, if we add Chris second year guaranteed, we add that to the mix, we can actually add up into the range of, and they probably said these 5 players, and one of them was Christian Wood. Like, I think that's what a smart, proactive front office does, stuff like that. And so it's a little bit of a gamble if you can't get off, these players in kind of a 4-player package. But if that's what they're intending to do and they pulled it off, like, props to them. That's almost gutsy.
Hey man, any type of plan and execution of said plan is like a glass of water in the desert compared to what we've seen the previous 3
Chris
summers.
Paul and Dwight are signing any second, man.
Right. Got to get Kristaps signed at midnight. Go out to dinner while 40 free agents fly off the board.
Oh man, I don't report.
Big difference. There's a big difference now between that and what's happening right now.
I don't report a ton of like random tiny details like that, or I will in stories. I think that dinner detail was mine. They did. They're just having. I can't tell you what restaurant, but it might have been sushi. So
sure, of course.
I bet it was good sushi. Like, credit to them.
I hope it. Hope it was worth it.
Y'all sound tired. Don't go too much longer.
I just tweeted that my wife filed for divorce 25 minutes ago, and she said 25 minutes ago I was granted a divorce. So that's good.
Well, I think if you need a rebound, I think you and Brian Windhurst can get married.
Sure, I hear you. Anyways.
All right, I'm getting out of here. See y'all.
Bye, buddy.
Okay. Guys, there's 7 more people waiting, and I actually do have to go. I really apologize. I love getting to everyone, but it's 150 minutes. I'm so sorry. Mason, Grayson, that rhyme was unfortunate. Nathan and DJ, I'll please come on. We'll do it again. We'll talk soon, okay? Josh, thanks so much for hanging out the whole time. You're the best.
Yeah, this was fun. I appreciate it.
All right. Guys, this will go up on a pod soon. Please check out our site. Josh might write something. CBA Mavs wrote something, which was really informative. Josh wrote a news-breaking piece, and we'll have more in the coming days. I'm still going to publish some of our draft stuff just because I like reading about the draft and just have to write editor's notes. This has been Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe with Mavs Party. Everyone have a great rest of your week. Bye, guys.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.